meeting to order. If everybody could stand. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We get a roll call, Madam Auditor.
Jerry Rivas.
Here.
Brett Stone.
Here.
Andy Vasquez.
Here.
Andy Bozak.
Present.
Rick Sims.
Present.
Sylvia Graham.
Present.
Here. All right. We got a quorum and welcome new member Andy Vasquez.
Thank you.
Ask questions. We'll try to answer them. Sit back, learn, yell, hoot, holler, get involved. So, yep, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
So, next is minutes. Approval of minutes for March 28th, 2023.
I make a I second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. First reading, please.
Hereby notice the taxpayers of Porter County, the following items have been brought to you this May 23rd, 2023 for your consideration. From the general fund, number 1,000, salaries in the reduction amount of 8,000, returning fugitives in the amount of 20,000. Lit, Fund 1112, MOH contractual services in the amount of 90,000. Auditors non-reverting Fund 1216, other equipment in the amount of $13,000. Firearms Training Fund 1156, uniforms and clothing in the amount of $10,000. Drug Task Force Fund 4010, uniforms and clothing in the amount of $10,000. 911 Donation Fund 4115, other supplies in the amount of $200. Public Safety Data Fund 4907, equipment rentals in the amount of $125,000. Contractual services in the amount of $14,211. Uniforms and clothing in the amount of $10,000. Inmate Processing Fund 4911, uniforms and clothing in the amount of $10,000. Historical Site Preservation Fund 4933, contractual services in the amount of $4,880. Sheriff DEA Proceeds Fund 8118, uniforms and clothing in the amount of $10,000. Equipment rentals in the amount of $25,905.
Thank you. All right, get right into it. We should be able to roll through most of this stuff. Commissioners, got a few requests up here, and then some discussions, presentations, so I don't know. Approval of minutes, can we do that?
Yeah.
So I can see you're gonna be very attentive today. So, yeah. So, so we'll start off, we can probably scratch the first one, right? I got an email, Commissioner, I know the, I don't know, Biggs, that was the HVAC, I know there was some concern with HVAC. I received that email about the JDC and the Opera, not the JDC, yeah, and the Opera House. But it seemed like you guys took the JDC off, so I don't know, and then I got an email about the Opera House being taken care of by facilities.
Yeah, we actually, is Daniel here? He was coming up here.
So that's, I just didn't know, you know, because I heard something about the JDC fine, so I just told Joy, put an additional on there just in case, so I mean.
Yeah, so with JDC, we were kind of doing a two-path approach, thinking we need to completely replace this thing, which we do. At the same time, we're also doing our best to repair it. We've literally put tape on the inside, the good kind that seals up water leaks and so forth. And it's done a pretty good job. We think we can get through this entire season for JDC. As far as Opera House, that was a much more late-breaking repair. Just this past week, this past Monday, we were able to do a significant amount of repairs on that, such that we think that we can do a full season and then take the refrigerant out of there again, recharge it again next year, and we can get 2 years out of that. In both cases, these are very temporary solutions, but it gives us time to make decisions for getting the right equipment, the best equipment there.
All right, so there'd be no action taken on this. I had just put that on there in case there was an emergency. I didn't know, you know, on one of them, but it seems like they're taken care of. But I think this might play into a further conversation, commissioners, about You know, I know when we created the facilities department, I think one of them was the director to really keep tabs on, you know, our facilities, anything major coming up. I know, Commissioner, you mentioned the roof on this place. That was the first I heard of that. So like large stuff like that, I mean, we probably need to, you know, have all this stuff, you know, in front of us so we know what's coming for sure, especially large ticket items, but it's something we can build off of. I know we've got some presentations about other buildings, so, but.
Which roof you talking about, the JDC or the Opera House?
No, roof, this one was.
Oh, this roof here?
This roof here.
So, yeah, just another thing to throw on your guys' plate, but that's,
Roofs are okay.
When did they find that?
Might be an
When did you
easier
find that
answer.
out?
But this, you know, this building was opened up in '93, so it's, you know, it's been here a while, so.
so I think
Original roof.
any major,
Okay.
you know, upgrades that we have on
Yeah.
buildings, you know,
Capital planning is definitely something I would like to be, like to put to the fore.
and I thought that was one of the big reasons why the facility department was established, so. But, all right, well, I appreciate the update on the units, thank you. So Historical Site Preservation Fund, there's an additional here for $4,880 to contractual services appropriation needed for historical building preservation.
Motion to approve.
There's a motion out there.
Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Sylvia's looking for a second, so there's a couple seconds, all right. So can you give us a little bit of a historical preservation fund? I'm not sure I'm familiar with this.
This was money transferred from the Porter County Community Foundation, specifically designated for historical site preservation. We have 3 historical buildings: Memorial Opera House, Sheriff's Residence, Courthouse. We are hoping to use this to do some plaster repair in the courthouse.
We had not used this money, my understanding, for a couple of years.
I don't think it's ever been,
Ever been used?
no, I don't think it's ever been, it's such a small dollar amount.
How much is in this account?
It's not a large amount. You can pull 5% out a year, so if you do the math, it's not a very large amount of money.
Maybe it's something,
The account's not at the county, the account's at the community foundation.
Correct.
That's invested, and every year you can take 5% off of it to do work on a historic building. And
designated for us, for the county, or for?
it's just for the county.
Yeah.
Yes.
It came from a donation somewhere along the line, and that donation's earmarked.
God, we never heard of this before.
And I don't think anybody's ever pulled it out because it's such a small dollar amount, and to have to come before the council and do all this kind of stuff, they probably just didn't think it was worth the effort, but.
There's one there for the animal shelter also.
But we are,
Same amount.
one of the things we're doing is hopefully, when we start doing the renovations for the Memorial Opera House, that the staff can move over into offices in the courthouse so that they can avoid the dust and the noise and the commotion over there. So, but the work to repair the plaster is specialized work. You don't just want to have somebody go in there and just start with a paintbrush. You need, there's some specialized processes that need to be used to repair that.
Well, I hope that moving forward, if there's money sitting somewhere for preservation, that getting it on the agenda and coming in front of us for 5 minutes is not too arduous of a task to grab
So
some
this
money.
money's going to the courthouse?
This will be going to facilities to do
said it
the
was
plaster repair.
Well,
In the
the 4,800 is going to be used to fix some.
For three offices that are along the windows, and I guess there was a water problem over at the courthouse that has since been fixed, but the plaster was never fixed in those, and its plaster is,
A lot of bubbling. It has to be probably broken out and relayed.
How long has this money been available to us?
yeah, I would,
I think it's been a while.
Yeah.
I think it's been a while.
Okay, so like 5,000 per year for
in
so many years?
perpetuity.
Is there
Perpetuity.
any, can you go back and say if we didn't use it in the past few years?
No, if you don't use
So if we
it.
don't use it, we lose it?
No, it just accumulates, and so every year your 5% theoretically grows if you don't touch
But you
it.
can only grab 5%.
You can only grab
Okay.
5% a year.
We got to make sure that we grab 5% every year then.
I agree. To me, I think it's a lot of money. I bet.
Next year, we're hoping that we will pass a resolution that just happens automatically every year, that they send it to us.
Because we can certainly use it with the 3 buildings that we can spend it on. I mean, the old courthouse needs something done to it every year.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Can we get a roll call on that additional?
Jeremy Reedus.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Bozak. Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
7-0.
All right, general fund transfer, $660 from hourly to overtime. Reason, regular security guard on medical leave need to pay jailers that are working in place of security administration building. So this will also roll into a 144, change security hourly up to $30 per hour. The reason, needed to update the Form 144 retroactive to 4/17/2023 for jailers to work security.
Second.
Second.
There's a motion,
I'm
a couple.
sorry, but you have to do the separate.
Oh, separate,
144
that's right.
Gotta do the 144 separate.
You want to do them separate, break it up. So. So, what's the motion?
If there was a motion.
Motion to approve both? I mean, is there a reason, Madam Auditor, that,
Yes, there is a reason. When it comes to financial, in case one person says no, we have to follow that through. So you can't put them together because they may say yes on one and no on the other. So they have to be separate.
Okay.
what if they signified that and then maybe we went back? I mean, if,
Well, I'm just telling you what the rules are, but you
I-
do it any way you want. Bottom line is, we could have had it voted on by now.
so we're gonna do them both together. So, there's a motion and a second on the transfer and the 144, discussion.
Is this retroactive? Are we paying the jailers more than what
Yeah,
he was making?
Yeah, what's happening here, Mike, is that we had Joe, our normal security guy, he had some medical stuff done. And he had to take some time off, and I believe it's like six weeks or so. And so we had to bring somebody in here. Well, instead of going on the outside and looking for somebody, hiring a security company, which would have been more expensive, or an off-duty police officer, which would have been more expensive, I believe it was the sheriff that came up with the idea, saying, hey, you can use one of our jailers, and you're paying at a lesser rate, but you have to pay them at a rate of overtime, which would explain was it 25 or 35?
I think it's 30.
30?
30.
Yeah, 30. So, and it's only temporary. Joe's back to work now. So it was something that we came up with to save a little bit of money. We felt better about having our own people, in that position with a sheriff's department uniform on, because they are carrying a firearm, so.
So Joe makes $22 an hour?
Yeah, something like
It
that.
makes 20.
20?
20? And we were paying jailers, we're paying them 30 for the
30.
same job?
Yes.
Do we pay by the job or by the person?
This case, we paid by the job. That
Well, then it
means
would
it's
be
what-
the same
it's what
amount of
we
money,
had,
right?
Huh?
Then it would be the same amount of money. If we're paying by the job, shouldn't they make what Joe was making? Or shouldn't Joe
They
get,
couldn't, though. They couldn't make what Joe was making because they had already worked, say, a 40-hour week or an 8-hour day, and anything over that time, because they were working for us, that we had to pay them overtime.
so is that the rate we pay for the other county buildings for security?
I don't know, Mike. I have no idea. I don't handle it. Our office does not deal with that.
So is Joe still on?
But your board sets that rate, so.
I just like 30, I don't know what they're making over there anymore, I don't remember.
I
If it's
don't-
consistent with what the other security officers are making.
Well, I looked at it as we had to make a decision to do something quickly. And if I brought somebody from the outside in, it would have been a lot more. Police officer, as you know, would have probably cost us $45 an hour at least. I don't know what a private security, and quite honestly, I don't know anything about the private security guard coming in here, so I felt comfortable with with bringing some of our jail staff in here.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying if the job pays $22 an hour for somebody to come in and work the same job, shouldn't that be $22 an hour?
Not if they're working overtime.
The problem is, they already work 40 hours a week, and they have a rate of pay that they get paid. Anything outside that 40 hours a week is time and a half.
Right.
So some of them make 28, some of them make, you know, but they're going to, like, is it 30 the base pay now and 45 overtime, or is it 30 because we have to look, if it's over 8 hours, then, I mean, you know, because some, you know, they work the 40-hour week instead of the 35-hour week, then it's time and a half.
And that's what established that rate, is that they were working overtime. If they had not been working overtime, we wouldn't need to pay them.
Okay.
I like that we're putting money back in our own employees' pockets. We're not going outsourcing to security.
Yeah, we thought about that too. We like that
I
idea
We're taking
too.
care of our own.
So, but now we're changing it to $30. Is that permanently gonna raise Joe's pay to $30? Is that what we're doing? I mean,
That's not our request. If that's something you'd like to consider.
Well, we're changing so it's only for the time period?
Yes, it was a special circumstance, and that's.
So, would that be clear for you guys in payroll then? I mean, we're changing to 144, but,
Well, that's up to $30 an hour, first of all. The 144 is
Gotcha.
up to $30 an
Okay.
hour. Right now, those individuals got paid $22 an hour. They only got part of the pay because we did not have the 144 in compliance with the $30 an hour.
yep, makes sense, thank you. All right,
Okay.
any further discussion? Can we get a roll call on the transfer in the 144?
Fred Stone?
Yes.
Andy Vasquez?
Yes.
Greg Sims?
Yes.
Andy Bozak?
Yep.
Mike Ripner?
Yes.
Sylvia Graham?
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas?
Yes.
7-0.
All right, thank you. So, all right, we'll roll right into these presentations then, and I put them all on there, I know, maybe they're, if you don't want to address them, we'll, you know, be discussion for us, you know, later, on these public discussion with the commissioners. I don't know what presentations you have, you know, obviously you have Highway Department here, I know you've got Skillman here, so,
You were talking about, yeah, I saw that on there. I mean, that's, I have no problem with that, Jeremy. It's just, if I'm allowed time to prepare for something, bringing anything up to the board to talk about. We were prepared to bring A and Z in front of you to explain the study that they had done, which is really the meat and potatoes of why we're here this evening. But, you know, I'm here right now. I'll answer anything I can answer, the best of my ability, but, and if you would like us to come back and to present something a little more formal, we're certainly willing to do that as well.
well, I think this is gonna fit in with everything else that's going on. I mean, the jail, so, I mean, I think it all fits together, and there's been meetings going on, so it's not like there should be a lack of preparedness. I mean, there's meetings, that have been going on with both of these facilities, or all three, if you include the Memorial Opera House, so, but yeah, I mean, you've got, people here from, A and Z and Martin Riley. We can get right into that.
Well, why don't we go down the order of how we have it on here?
Sure,
Start with
Memorial
the
Opera House,
Opera
Skillman, jump right in.
So we have Scott and Jeff, and Scott, you want to come up? By the way, there's too many Scotts. We found out that we have 3 Scotts in the meetings at the same time, yeah.
You want in, Scott?
Yeah. So,
Only 2 Andys.
3 and 2, that's full house.
I think there's another Andy at the Opera House, so that's, there's more Andys. Load up.
So Scott McClure actually had a really good suggestion in helping us to move this project forward. And he suggested that we come up with a list of things that we could get 2 commissioners to agree on and 4 council people to agree on. We hope today that we can find 4 council people that are willing to approve this list. We did have the council liaisons at 2 of our meetings. I'm not sure if both of them attended both of those meetings. Scott McDonald did attend both of those. I think Scott Cherry attended both of those meetings. We didn't realize we needed Jeff Lewis or someone from the foundation, but Jeff participated in the second meeting to make sure that we had the list. When we got Skillman's first assessment, and we knew that we were going to have a range, either a low or high end, and this project was going to fall somewhere in between. One of the items that we wanted on this list was additional restrooms, and that actually caused this project to be, on the high end, to be a little bit more than $6.9 million, and we knew that would exceed the $5 million that we had in pandemic funds that had been approved via ordinance back in November and December. So we reached out to Jeff and asked if the foundation would like some time to see if they could possibly commit to helping with the restrooms, or if we should take it off. And in the interest of moving this project forward, they just suggested that we remove the restrooms. Today, in our meeting, in the commissioners' meeting, there was one other item that was struck, and that was the plaza. And the plaza is just to create a nice space in between both the sheriff's residence and the Memorial Opera House. So now, if you take a look at that very bottom line, instead of the $2.7 million, it is $2,623,372 on the low end, and $4,404,120 on the high end. And that was Scott just calculating that just a few minutes before this meeting started so that we could give you an accurate representation. So if you take a look at all of the items, these are pretty much things that they just have to be done. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention for your interest in that the foundation has committed to providing the funding for the auditorium seats. So that will be,
175, 200.
that's between the 175 and the 200,000. Obviously, we're responsible for the carpet, and so that is a quote for both the carpet and the auditorium seats. So their contribution to this would be somewhere in that area.
So that's quite a bit of a range, Scott. And I guess my start off is, we gotta preserve this building, you know. There was a plan, a great plan to utilize both buildings, connect them, move the bathrooms, which to me is a key component. You know, if you've ever been in those bathrooms, it's, especially for, you know, a woman, it's just not, it's not good. So I thought that, obviously, the roof, to secure any kind of further damage to the structure, the roof, the windows, the brick, to stop any kind of water penetration is important. But to me, for the usage, you know, the bathrooms were important. So I mean, if this range, Scott, ends up on the low end, we've just struck the plaza, which I'm glad, because I mean, if we're looking right now to just secure the building and make it the best operational building, the plaza has nothing to do with that. Can the bathrooms be added in there if this is on the low range?
Sure. Let me explain how I put this estimate together in lows and highs. As you know, we had a very good estimate from the original drawings that we were seeing. So I had quantities for everything, and I can take those off and inflate them to today's dollars, which is pretty easy to do. But what happens when you start talking about concepts and, you know, putting bathrooms in, there's such a wide range of what can be done there, and so I used like what was in the original as a basis on the high end and said, well, maybe we can scope it down, but again, you need an architect to design that. So roof, for example, in the original scope, we didn't have replacing the whole roof. We had fixing it, patching it, and making sure it's good. Then there was conversations of possibly needing another roof. So that's why you see such a gap. And Mr. Rivas, you're absolutely right. If you take this range and we sit with the architect and design to that range, somewhere in there, there are going to be things that are going to be less expensive, and as we zoom in on them better, we can better identify the costs and maybe look at options for the restroom to fit under that magic number, whatever that high end is. So that's kind of our approach, and that's why there's such a range. I don't like to give estimates that are $1 million difference. It's not our style, but in this case, at some point, you have to, you know, you're asking us to come up with a concept. Plaster, patching, and repair, how far do we go? The carpet, or the flooring in the auditorium, there's such a range of different floor materials that cost certain levels. So the idea is to get you in there, and when we get back refocused with the designers, we can zoom in on better numbers, knowing that we can't exceed. And that's when we could possibly look at ways to squeeze restrooms in, because that has been on the list for a long time, and it's important.
Well, what about instead of squeezing restrooms in, if you're gonna put a whole new HVAC system in, the existing HVAC with the piping and everything would be different, correct? So like where the bathrooms are now, is it possible that the women's bathroom can be the men's and the men's the women, and that shoved out, like a wall broken down and?
It's possible, but again, the designers really need to answer that. I hate to answer it like that, but you really need to take in all different kinds of considerations in that. ADA, structure, it's an old building, can we do that? We can explore it and see what happens. It's a good idea.
Because that'll give more bathroom space without adding more bathrooms somewhere else, but it's not the perfect fix, but maybe better than what we've got.
That's exactly what I mean. There's so many ideas out there that are very good ideas that need to be explored.
What did you quote? When you said the bathrooms, was that adding on to the building in the back? Was that heard that, or was that something else? Or?
Yeah, in the original design, there was a big connector.
Right, I'm not talking about that.
Behind that was the restrooms with a lobby area and things like that. It was a pretty good sized men's and women's restroom.
So that was the 175?
175 to 2 million, because that's what I kind of used as a basis and said, look, if we just wipe that out and make that work somehow, which is a tricky little project between those buildings, that's what the cost would be roughly. You may shrink that down and push it back, and that could be on the low end, it could be below, and that's what we need to find out.
So sort of the timeline that we had is if you today vote to continue at our June 13th meeting, we would vote on an amended Schmidt Associates and Skillman contracts. And then we would come back to you on your 27th meeting and ask for an appropriation of funds for the project, because they're not going to, neither of them will work for nothing, and they're not going to design anything until we have some funding for that project.
Well, my concern is, this building has been crying for help. We really need to address the needs of the building. Instead of patching and making do, we have the money to do it. My concern is we're piecemealing a building that has been in existence forever, and it's a well-known building in the county, and I think that it deserves to be taken care of properly, not just patching it together. We do have the money for it, and that's my concern, is that that's part of our charge, is to take care of our buildings.
Well, we are, on the high end, we are at the $4.4 million. So I don't know what else in terms of, I'm not exactly understanding what you're suggesting that we do separate from this list of things that we're proposing that we fix.
Your lists kind of limit. What if you run across something that needs to be taken care of, that's not on the list? What
A change order, Sylvia, a change order that would increase the,
cost?
that's always a possibility.
And that's true, usually in any type of construction, you run into that.
That's always a possibility, you start.
Well, what's the miscellaneous incidental 250 to 500? Is that what you're talking about, possible?
Within all the costs, Ms. Grant, there are a lot of incidental items included in there. What you see up there is just the end number. There's a lot of components that go into that. For example, if you're going to replace a chiller, all the electrical, all the components that go with that are in there. And those miscellaneous, some of those things, patching, some of the plaster that we talked about, some of the millwork, how we address that. Is that going to be, new, or can we paint what we have? It really comes down to, once we start designing, that's where we're at. We have a 7% design contingency built in there. That's just to protect the budget. and then about a 5% construction contingency is what I like to carry with that.
Well, again, my concern was this building needs to be taken care of. We've all identified that. And rather than patch and piecemeal, I think it should be done properly.
But we're not, I want to make something clear. We are not suggesting that we do a substandard job here. The things that are marked, whether it's on the low end or high end, are still high end. Either category is a high end cost to work on this building. Now, for what it's worth, I would support the low end, because the low end will allow us, when we get into this, and there are other things that we're finding that need addressed, sooner rather than later. We will have it within our budget to do that, and we're almost guaranteed not to go over budget at that point. That has been my fear from day one with this project, is that we're dealing with a very old building, and once you start, tearing up floors and looking into walls, and tearing out HVAC systems, what's going to happen. I talked to an engineer that worked on this building, an electrical engineer, years ago, and they said that they had to, the walls were so fragile that they had to melt lead into where they had drilled into the wall to hold the screw, because it was too fragile to hold anything else but the lead. And, if you look at the list, we're looking to do what we believe that will hold this facility well for the next 25 years. That's addressing the roof, the HVAC system, the exterior, with the brick. We're updating the lighting. We're not going to do the plaza, evidently. All the plaster repair.
How about bathrooms?
And no, we weren't going to touch the bathrooms. Sylvia, let me say that, and I know that this has been it's been a sensitive subject between at least me and some of the members of the council. And here's where I look at it. If we were in a different situation, I would be fine with this. But I'm struggling to find a way to fix a garage, to fix a jail, to fix this building, and to go outside of that $5 million. I can't justify that. I walked into a very nice restaurant downtown Valpo here today. And the bathroom was tiny, seemed to work well. I get it that it's small, but the building is 150 years old. I understand it, and the other thing is that the 7 members of the council need to understand. Whatever we do today with this, know this. That doesn't mean that 5 years from now or 2 years from now that bathrooms aren't eventually added to it. When we know from a financial standpoint, we're better prepared to take it on. It doesn't mean that it's always going to be that way. But this way, we take and address this problem that we batted around here for the last, since 2019.
I agree.
Jim, when was the last time you were there to play?
Oh, probably 5 years ago,
Okay.
4 years ago.
I was there Saturday night, and some elderly people there, it was awesome. It was a fantastic performance. And people wheelchair could not go into the bathroom. It couldn't fit. And we got an elderly community that loves to experience those things. Why are we not taking care of all the people? If we're going to do this, let's do it all so that we're not eliminating anyone's opportunity to go see an awesome production by our own people. That's why. So if we're going to tear into this now, it just makes sense to do the bathrooms to get that done efficiently so that we don't have to look back.
Well, Greg, I think that's where you and I differ.
You need to go to a play, you need to check it out, you need to see the people, watch them in intermission, see how they react, hear the conversation, disguise yourself so that they have no idea there's a commissioner there that they don't want to, say something negative or whatever.
I don't think you'd know who they were looking at.
You'd be surprised. But the bottom line is, take an honest look at it, and if you haven't been here in 5 years, you have no idea the experience
I
there.
have no-
So to judge it is not fair to the Opera House.
It's not a question of judging it.
You are judging
I'm
it.
not questioning that it needs, that it may need new bathrooms.
You're saying it's
okay?
not worth it. Not now.
I'm saying that we should do what we can afford to do.
We have to do what's
without
right.
risking other projects.
So Scott,
Scott, I have a question on the, kind of help me out, when does the design phase happen? I mean, right now, we're talking,
Once you get a architect under contract to make the changes that reflect what you want to do, that's when that starts. They'll probably need 3 months by the time we work together and get what we want. And you'll need, I think statutorily, you need a month to bid. So you're looking at 4 or 5 months from now.
so to kind of pin these numbers down a little bit better, that's what you're saying would be the to kind of look at what it's going to look like with some more, a little bit more specific cost to
Yeah,
it.
the only way we're gonna get true numbers is that,
If you look at the low end with the bathroom, it was about 4.7 million, maybe 4.
Well, that was this bathroom, not the new possible
No, that
proposal of
was-
switching bathrooms.
No, that was low end with the additional restrooms. It was 4 point, it was.
No, I'm talking about switching the bathrooms, making the men's,
Right.
you're talking about adding different bathrooms, right? I'm talking about something different. So if it's possible to switch the bathrooms and redo the HVAC, that number should come in less. So would that help come in $5 million, I guess would be the next question.
How does switching the men's and women's restroom solve?
I guess the question there would be is when was the last time you were there? Have you walked into the?
Just there.
Did you go into both the bathrooms
Gotta go.
and see?
Yeah, I did.
Did you go in the first stall of the women's and see?
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone could sit there on the toilet. It's so tiny. It needs to be expanded.
The men's is bigger than the women's, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, Scott, can you explain this more?
Sure. So
I've never been in the women's, I've been there, I've been there with the
I was in there Sunday. I was in there on Sunday and there was nobody in there.
same. I think the idea that Councilman Sims is working toward is there is some room if we needed to expand what is currently the men's room to add some more room. There's room there with the lounge downstairs. We could build into that, but to Scott Cherry's point, it also depends on structure. It depends on what we can do. If that allows more room for more seats or more stalls, then we look at that. But I also feel like that might be getting a little more granular than we need to right now.
So Scott, then, I mean, to move forward with this, I mean, there's $5 million that was allocated by this council. I look around, there's still those votes that are here, you know, that allocated that money. I mean, would you go back in it then and with the architects and start going through all these things and see where it lands, and then you can have, you know, those options and option B or whatever with those bathrooms? Because I think it's important. I agree with these council people that if we can get this, I mean, and maybe the auditorium seats, if they're gonna pick it up and that helps slide these bathrooms, whatever it is to make them ADH compliant or, you know, as close to it, however, I mean, I think that those bathrooms need to be addressed, you know, the best they can right now until maybe in the future we get a group of elected officials that wanna, you know, look at other options again, but.
Well, do you want to approve do you want to allocate that $5 million back to this project so that we can actually have them start doing that work?
We can't do that tonight, there's nothing that was advertised, there's nothing, I mean, so how soon could you begin to get numbers? I mean, I get it.
Again, I have to
I
have
get
that
it.
design. That's the hardest
Yeah.
thing for me to take into account. Codes,
Yeah.
ADA, structure, and how we can do that. You know, if you said we can go with $5 million, then I would say to the team, let's start with a $4 million construction cost budget. And knowing all these priorities that are on the list, and start looking at the possibility of what can be done with those restrooms, because we've never had the input really from the designer on the different possibilities with the restroom. You know, and I think that's a critical thing. And by getting the architect on board and at least we'll do our thing, that's what we do, we work backwards with your budget. We can have a schematic design estimate, that will tell us, within a month after you approve it, whether or not that's viable or a doable option. And here's what it entails.
Well,
It may not be.
I guess that was my question, because we have a $7 million, we had the $5 million ARPA that was allocated by ARPA that we would allocate back if we had an idea what the plan was. And then we have a $2 million commitment from the foundation that was voted on. So we have a $7 million budget. So if we were to come to you and say, start with a $7 million budget, let's get some numbers, let's look at what we can get for $7 million.
Where do we have? Mike, we gotta be careful with the 2 million was.
2 million foundation, that wouldn't pay for the bathrooms.
No,
No,
that was allocated when we had the expansion.
It's
So the expansion's not there anymore, so the 2 million wouldn't be there.
The foundation
Yeah,
does not have
yeah,
$2 million.
Yeah, that's off the table.
They have not, we just spoke with them. Mike.
Yeah.
Well, the last conversation that we had that we voted on was that they committed to 2 million.
Well, that's.
That's the last conversation, so I don't, whatever else is going on hasn't been shared with
Mike, I think
anybody
that
up
was,
here.
I think that $2 million was part of the discussion to do the entire project. They were
That was
in,
for both buildings.
yes,
Correct.
they were in,
Yes.
they were in
we were
to
getting
do
it
both
for
buildings,
two
do the
buildings.
connector, they
So now
were,
we're just talking about one building?
Correct.
Right.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
So I think that,
Just to add a little clarity, the discussion related to the foundation committing a larger amount toward the restrooms in this budget, we felt that it probably wasn't feasible because it was, you need something to really sell to raise that kind of money.
Right.
And it's, it's like selling asphalt. If we're gonna say we wanna, build a small addition for bathrooms, when it was a more glamorous, woodsy
Right.
project that was sellable.
Right.
I think the foundation at that time felt that it was attainable, but it would probably be very difficult to.
So what you're saying, those conversations happen and that's not on the table anymore?
Yeah.
The chairs, the.
Why is that the case? When we voted on that, why is that not on the table anymore?
Again, we're not looking at the entirety of the project with the connector. We are also, speaking strictly for the foundation, looking at $2 million for restrooms in this total budget. It's almost 40% of the budget. So that didn't feel feasible to us either.
Sounds like this building's not feasible for, I mean, the money we're throwing around here for this building, and this is what I do for a living, I mean, you could build a brand-new building feasible with bathrooms and seating and everything for the Opera House. I mean, this building just doesn't seem like it fits the purpose, which I'm willing to do it. I think it's a great building. Let's restore it back to the original, let's get it going. But I mean, we're throwing money around like it's nothing. I mean, it's $5 million that we're spending on this building. I'm looking at the Center Township garage. We're looking at jail renovations. We have a bond coming due. We have a lot of other roads. No one even talked about roads yet. Wait till that conversation comes up. I mean, I just think we have a lot to talk about here.
Well, first of all, we're not throwing the money around like it's nothing. This was voted on before you got here.
Right.
And it was discussed. That's not the case. This is money that was allocated.
You're throwing money around, Mike, when you really don't have a
You
full
weren't
understanding
part of that
all the
conversation,
projects
so for
coming
you to
up.
say that is wrong. We're not throwing the money around like it's nothing.
You know what's
You're right,
nice is
you're
we're
right.
gonna talk about a bunch of
You're right, and
projects
we'll talk
tonight
about that when we
that is
talk about the
gonna
other
prove my point
projects.
exactly. We don't even have enough money in the bond coming up to do.
This is something that we talked about before you were here, so you to make those comments is out of line. You don't know what you're talking about.
So I can't go back and read every budget and read every line item and get an understanding of our budget?
I'm just saying to make a general comment that we're throwing money around like it's nothing is irresponsible comment. That is not the case. So you educate yourself before you say something like that.
I will think, I
Before you
think
say
when we come
something
up to the
like that.
garage and the jail, I'll be definitely be able to educate you on how much money we have left in a bond and how we're not going to be able to do, 75% of the work at the jail because we don't have enough money?
You don't have to
And
convince
we
me.
didn't
We
touch
have
the
some
roads yet.
obligations, Ronald, but to say that we're throwing money around like it's nothing is a reckless comment, and it's not true.
Well, I think we need to have priorities up here, so that's all. So I think it will,
As
once we get down the
somebody
list,
said,
we'll see it.
The Memorial Opera House has been a priority for what, you said 5 years at
I think it's
least?
longer. I think Commissioner Biggs might have voted on the first architectural drawings in 18 or something. This has been going on for
I think it's nice.
19, so this isn't new, this isn't, sprung on anybody. It didn't make the cut of the last facility, when we did the bond, $30 million, it got cut out. So, and then all of a sudden, we've got federal money here, and the conversation was, yeah, we could do a lot more with federal money, and maybe them raising some money and really doing something with both buildings and connecting them and making this, a gem, shining up what's already a gem. I mean, I'm not gonna be part of closing it down, just fixing it up and putting a sign up, nothing happening inside of it. What we have going on inside of it is incredible right now. For the community, the outreach they're doing for children right now is unbelievable. It's servicing the community in an incredible way. So we just obviously don't have the support of the commissioners to move forward, with the full project that we all, had voted on, Councilman Brickner. So to me, we got to preserve this building the best we can right now and hope maybe, future boards have the vision to move that gem forward in a bigger capacity later down the road. But right now, I think we need to definitely secure it and make it, secure the building and make it as best operational for the people that are doing great things in the community right now. I mean, I would say the $5 million is there, and everybody can speak, but to me, there's $5 million. We allocated it once. I'm certain we'd allocate it again. I can't speak for everybody, but to me, let's move forward on spending this $5 million in that building, all of it, to the best we can.
Allocate it now, they don't have money to do.
We can't allocate it right now.
We can get on the agenda and allocate it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to future meetings.
Yeah.
There's no way they can start the design work.
Our timeline is at our June 13th meeting that we would approve an updated agreement with Skillman and a replacement contract with Schmidt, or vice versa. I can't remember which way we went.
Either or.
So you're just looking for us to give you a nod that you have 4 council members that would be interested in voting for this?
Yes.
We're not, I want to make something clear, speaking as the president of the Board of Commissioners. We want to fix what's broke over there. My goal is not to spend that $5 million. My goal is to spend less than that, if we can, and do a good job. It's not just to go in there and say we went in there and spent some money. It's to truly fix what's broken there. That's what our end goal is. And if there's $1 million left, or $500,000 left, or $1.5 million left, great. We've got plenty of other stuff that we're going to be looking at. But that's our goal.
When you say other stuff to looking at, you're talking about with the Opera House, or you're talking about using the money in some other capacity in the county?
Absolutely using the money in some other capacity.
So my thought is again, there's a lot that could be done there. I mean, the seats and everything, if we, the bathrooms first, I think the bathrooms. Let's get in there. I think the bathrooms have to be a priority. Go through it. I mean, if we get in,
We can bid it out that way, Jeremy. We can bid it out to have, alternates and find out. Let's bid it. We're not gonna know until we bid it out. Let's find out what it is. We'll have alternate bids, and then, as a county government, not just the Board of Commissioners, as a county government, let's look at all of that and decide which direction we wanna go in.
Yeah, to me, it was $5 million we got from the federal government. Let's use it. It was allocated for this purpose already. I think there's the votes to allocate it again for this purpose. Let's do as much as we can over there. And I think the bathrooms are a critical component of that. Whatever we can do to make it more comfortable for.
I agree with you on the bathrooms. If we're gonna do the bathrooms.
Whatever makes it more
ADA,
comfortable,
get it,
right.
And then fix whatever we can fix, whatever we,
Yes, if
and
that's
then fix whatever we
possible.
can fix.
Right now, none of us know whether or not moving
Right,
the wall.
so,
is
yeah, I mean, whatever you need, if you guys want to entertain a motion that we will put the $5 million back, we'll put it on the agenda next month, so you guys are comfortable with putting
I would make the motion.
I'll second it.
motion a couple seconds that we'll have the $5 million on next month's agenda to allocate back for the Opera House,
With the bathrooms included.
with the bathrooms as an option.
They'll be excluded.
So, any further discussion? All in favor of that signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. So, let's
All right, we're moving forward with the Opera House.
Hurrah.
secure that building. Let's
Thank you.
make it as
Thank you very
comfortable as we can. Disappointed it's not moving forward with the way it is, but, maybe in 8 years when I'm gone, there'll be a group of other people that figure it out. So. All right. Sheriff's residence, I don't know if that's something that you guys
Yes,
want to
we would like to
discuss.
talk about that today. So one of the things that we've been working on is is getting a use out of the sheriff's residence. It's been vacant for over 3 years. We're paying utilities on it. It's costing us about $10,000 a year in NIPSCO bills to keep it so that it doesn't fall apart. So one of the things that we had looked at was leasing this out. And without coming to the council, we knew that we could lease it for $25,000 a year or less, and/or 3 years or less. When one of your predecessors, Councilman Jessen, found out that we were thinking about leasing it for $25,000, he was a little concerned that that might not be best utilization of leasing that out. So that's why we're coming to you today. And that is to allow us to, as an option, to lease it out for longer than 3 years, and to lease it out for more than $25,000 a year. So we actually did have 2 appraisers, 2 certified appraisers, come in with some estimates as to what it would bring in. In order for us to lease it out for under $25,000, we only had the ability to lease out the first floor. However, if we had the flexibility of leasing it out for more than $25,000, one appraiser suggested that the annual rent would be about $40,289, and the other one $42,312 on an annual rent. One of the things that they had suggested, we initially were going to lease it as is and have whoever was going to be leasing it do leaseholder improvements. That's still an option on the table. However, they thought we might have an easier job of leasing it out if it were move-in ready. And we got a couple of estimates on what that would take. Daniel may have an estimate. One of the appraisers thought that to renovate the main level would be about close to $120,000, and then to renovate the entire sheriff's residence would be $155,000. And Daniel, I don't know if you have any estimates on your own. This was an appraiser giving these estimates.
Yes, I'm talking getting budget estimates from actual contractors, meaning not, finely sharpened pencils, but budget estimates. That 120 is bearing out to give us kitchenette, washroom, HVAC, air conditioning, that sort of thing, and basic repair.
Mm-hmm. And our hope was that next month at the RDC meeting, we would go and ask if we could borrow the money from them, depending on if we were just doing the main level or whether we were doing the entire facility. And then we would repay the RDC as those lease payments came back in. And once the RDC has been repaid, then we would create a non-reverting fund and have all lease payments go into that non-reverting fund, so that then our facilities director would have the ability to maintain that building and not have to constantly come and ask for approval for funds to do various fixes to the sheriff's residence. So it would kind of be a self-funding facility in that case.
Has there been a thought about renting out the bottom part and letting the Opera House have the upper part for their space instead of putting them at the courthouse?
Well, that would be a challenge, just because you don't have any separation and you don't have any doors on the rooms in there. So that would be, from a privacy perspective, you wouldn't have, that would be a challenge. That is a potential, but this isn't going to happen in the short term. And we think that that the staff of the Opera House, they need something right now that they can take advantage of.
But it's something for the future, because again, the courthouse has limitations in regards to hours that they can go in there. We all know that with security and everything. This would give them a lot more opportunity and being right next door, it's very convenient.
Actually, Scott and I had a conversation about this, and it's, if they needed to come in later, like, let's say they have a production, they still have the Opera House that they can use, so that isn't being taken away from them. And they can stay in beyond the time that the courthouse closes. It's just the ability to have people come in after 4:30 when the courthouse closes would be a challenge. But Scott felt confident that they could work around that. It just is going to make it will make it a lot more complex if we have to then fix the upper level as well to rent out the lower level, because we would still have to, fix the entire place for them to have space. And just the logistics of security and having two different organizations in that building would be a challenge.
So you're saying you want to do the upstairs, and what if you don't have anyone that wants to rent all of that space?
Then we would have that we would have that option at that point in time. We are just thinking to have the flexibility of being able to lease out either the first floor or to lease out the entire building. At this point in time, we don't know which is going to be more attractive. We are going to have to advertise this. It's required that we do this. And then as the proposals come in, we're going to have to take the best proposal. So whoever has the best proposal, and we don't get to just say, well, I like this person over this person. You actually have to take the best proposal at that point.
But wouldn't it be counterproductive to fix the whole place without knowing who might rent? Because if you fix the whole place up and only people are interested in the main floor, then we just spent money on the
It
upper
would be
floor for no
nice to
reason.
have the whole place fixed, though, if we have the ability to do that.
And I think the cost difference was only, what, 20 or 30,000? Fixing the
Yeah,
bottom.
120 and 155, yeah, so it's about,
close,
yeah.
and would recoup some of the money with getting rent,
yeah,
I have a question.
and
Yeah.
you taking care of your building.
yeah.
Has the county ever been in the business, I mean, Jim, you might be able to answer this, or others, of taking a county building and renting it out to whatever? Have we ever had this in our previous history?
I'm not familiar with, I'm familiar with us leasing property, but not property that we own leasing.
Who would
No,
be,
so the answer to your question, I'm not aware that we've ever leased anything out.
who would be liable? Would there be is the county gonna be liable if somebody, whatever company or whatever entity?
Could be, depending on it's very fact sensitive, but
It's probably very,
unlikely, but could be.
yeah, probably a very
Unlikely.
similar situation that anybody that rents anywhere out, if a customer of
That's
theirs
what one of my
falls in
concerns
there.
are for the county.
Yeah, well, we're not going to skirt total liability by leasing it out, no.
I just have a couple.
We would still have some
A
liability.
couple questions. Commissioner, you mentioned that the offices, going back, the Opera House officers are going to go to the courthouse. Was that temporary?
Yes.
Just during the construction? And then once the construction's over, they're going to move back to where they are now?
If they want to, we were also potentially looking at a better location for them initially. I had asked Daniel to take a look at 157 Franklin for them, but there just isn't any space there right now. Obviously, we don't want to move them very far away from the Memorial Opera House, so we wanted to give them some offices that were relatively close.
So renovating this sheriff residence, like Councilman Sims was suggesting, to have the upper level for the offices, you don't think that is doable or would be better suited for the entire
It all
project?
depends. It all depends on when we advertise and taking the best offer when we get the proposals back from.
So I guess I'll build off what they're saying. Why rent it out then? It's one of our buildings, it's a historical building. Why not just fix it out? Maybe right now have Skillman added as another option.
Another alternate.
As another alternate, it's $150,000. Why do we care about $40,000 of rent? We're moving office staff into a building, we actually moved people out of it because we did want to lessen the traffic over at the courthouse. Now we're moving people back into it. Why wouldn't we just use those offices for the operation of the Opera House? Why don't we fix it up and just use the operations of our buildings? Why are we concerned about leasing that out? Let's just fix it up and use it. We have people that could occupy that area.
Well, I think the justification is the fact that it's difficult to lease out space in the courthouse, and I would say virtually impossible. And so at least we have some revenue coming in on a regular basis to keep that building maintained. And I would imagine that that is a building that we want to hang on to forever, and at least we have a permanent funding source to keep that building in shape. I know this 150,000, this is just to get it in a move-in ready state, so somebody would be willing to lease it. It is still going to continue to need care and work, and it tends to be one of those buildings that's neglected. And so this would provide a,
It's our county building, then we would be responsible to take care of it.
Yeah, I just don't know why we're worried about leasing. We moved people out of the courthouse to lessen some traffic over there. We're adding it, just, why not
we're
fix that
talking
building
about
up?
moving 2 people over into the courthouse so that they can have a place where currently they're sharing an office. This gives them 2 separate offices so they can function. Once we start doing work at the Memorial Opera House, it's going to be loud, it's going to be dirty, and this gives them a place that they can get away from that. And then, should they ever want to move back, they may like it over there so well that they stay there, but should they ever want to move back after the renovations are done, then they'd have the ability to do that.
I just don't know why.
I did have one,
Yeah,
just,
go
I'm sorry to
ahead.
interrupt, just one more question going off with Sylvia. When Sylvia asked if we'd ever done this before, can somebody remind me, what was the situation with 157 Franklin? Was that a lease? Did we lease that out?
The
or-
restaurant you're talking about?
No, where we
Oh.
got, where,
That's what I want to
You
know.
mean 15 Franklin?
was that it, where we got ourselves into a
Right.
situation? What was
Sure
that
did.
situation?
Yeah, that, we leased that building from someone from a private owner.
Okay, so we were
We didn't
leasing,
know.
we were leasing it.
Yeah.
I think it's a creative solution. I think you guys have figured out a way to maintain the building and to generate some revenue to keep it maintained because we don't have any use for it right now. I mean, I don't know what we'd use it for.
Well, that would be the other thing too, is at some point in time, we may have a use for it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So your 5 years, we can figure out.
Yeah, that's, and actually having the Memorial Opera House staff move in there, that's 2 people, and it's over 3,000 square feet.
Well,
So
that's
it
that's
just
not
is-
quite fair. They'd use it for more than 2 people. They'd use it for programming and some other stuff.
No, I'm just saying
It's
that
not
if we're
fair to say
talking
just 2
strictly
people.
about office space, then that's kind of a waste in that case.
We never
So-
were strictly talking about office space originally when the plan was to do other things over there, to let them use it for other things. Let them
Children's
utilize the
program.
building, yeah, children's program, any kind of stuff for children. To me, I think we should fix it up, put it in there, let Skillman see what it's gonna cost to fix it up and let the Opera House use it. It's right there on that site. They run
Before-
operations
yeah,
over
Before we
there.
go in committing our, the entire county government to, additional programming and this in children's whatever.
Children's whatever?
Let me remind everybody up here, the Board of Commissioners has never approved any additional programming other than to hold plays in that building. With the personnel that we have in that building were hired to run theater. They weren't hired to manage children and to manage children's programming. Now, if we're going to get into that business, that's a very serious conversation that we need to ask, we all need to ask each other before that happens. Because, the whole theater situation over there, Greg, is that for the longest time, we had one employee over there who was on contract, who managed the place for community theater. That has morphed into what we have today. And you know as well as I do, some people in county government, rightly or wrongly, have a serious problem with the county being in the theater business. We're county government. And I'm not saying I'm not advocating that we don't. What I'm advocating is that before we start taking space and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars into it potentially, that's much larger than what they're even needing. We need to have a long, hard conversation about what we want that operation over there to look like in 5 or 10 years, because we haven't had that yet. And that's a decision the county government needs to make, not just the county council or not just the Board of Commissioners. That's something all of county government needs to talk about, because it is going to have a price tag to it that I'm not sure all of you are willing to take on. If we were to do the build-out as it was initially presented to the Board of Commissioners and the council, today, that price tag just for that build-out is nearly $10 million and counting. So We have 5. I don't, I think that the simple request that we have a building that's been sitting idle for 3 years, paying average of $10,000 a year in utility bills on it. We come forward and we say, hey, look, we have an idea that this will help the building pay for itself. I don't know why that's not being grabbed with both arms and saying, that's a wonderful idea.
Well, then why aren't we still renting out that restaurant at 157? That was a working restaurant. Do you not want to make money renting that place?
Well, Greg, that's not as simple as it may seem, that you have to get somebody in there to have a working restaurant. It would take an additional investment on our end to bring in the utilities that they will need.
They're already there, aren't they?
No, not everything. That, from what I'm being told, in order to do that.
Well, do you not want to, because I was in the meeting and there was a comment made that you do not, no matter what, you don't want to rent that place out.
That I did.
Yeah, you don't want to be in a restaurant or renting out
Here's
business.
my recommendation. Next time you hear somebody,
I was in the room and you were in there too.
the next time you hear me say something, that somebody's telling you I said something, call me.
We were in the same room, Jim. We were in that same room together.
And I said I wasn't interested in renting it out.
Yes, and that, because it rang in my head, I'm like, if you're not interested in renting that out, then why would you be interested in renting out the jail, the old jail?
Well,
It didn't make any sense to
I'm
me.
being told by somebody that's in the restaurant business that it's not practical. That we would have to invest additional monies in there to make that to where they would be able to make money. That instead of having the renter come in and invest and put those machines in there, in our building, which is a problem all in itself, because if it doesn't work out, and they're gonna have to jerk it all back out again, it's just a messy situation.
What made those people leave in the first
That might be the
place?
reason you don't see governments renting out restaurant space.
Well, I was just curious, when I heard that remark about not renting this place, but then you want to rent the other, it just didn't make sense. It didn't jive. It wasn't consistent. That's all I was
Can I just say one thing? I think one of the other reasons that Commissioner Biggs didn't want to do that is because he was advised that we might actually need that space for county government, and indeed we do, and we do have a plan for that space that doesn't involve us leasing that out. So.
But that's a lot different than what was said. That's all I'm saying is, let's be consistent. That's all I'm saying. If we're gonna rent one place, then why are we renting another? Or we rent none, or we rent more. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I'm not interested in being consistent. What I'm interested in
Okay,
is...
I like being consistent,
well,
so
that's
that's-
good. I'm interested in being right. And we have a situation,
right and
we have a
consistent be
building
the
over
same
there
thing?
that hasn't had anybody in it for over 3 years. And then even before that, it's only had the historical museum into it. So it didn't have a large use to it. And it's been, county government vacated it in the early 70s. Now we have an opportunity for not only a building, but for prime real estate to do something with it that will hold it, that will help hold its value, that it doesn't deteriorate to the point that it has to be torn down.
And the only reason
That's all we're advocating.
And the only reason we came today is just to see if you had an interest in us leasing out the whole building and generating more revenue. If not, we will just go back to our original plan of leasing out the main level and for 3 years.
That's a great point, Barb, is that if you want to say no, say no.
We actually...
We thought we had a pretty good idea to come up to put some use to that building, to try to get it back into shape. If you all don't want to do that,
If we say no, that's only gonna bring in less revenue for us, and you're gonna have an empty upstairs, because you guys can still do it for 3 years, anything under 3 years, and anything under $25,000, you don't need our approval.
Correct.
So you're
yeah, but it would be
doing
nice
this
to have the
doing it
fiscal
to
body's
them.
approval.
They can do it without us, is what my point is.
May I ask a question, please?
Yeah,
So you're here to listen to all this. You said it's 3,000 square feet?
yeah.
Okay. And I know there's concern for some...
2,967, according to the
I
appraiser.
stand corrected by 23 feet or so. There's concern about having office space for employees of the Opera House, is that correct, sir? Is there any way to allocate those individuals an area or the size of personnel that's going to be there as well as renting out the space?
Well, see, that's the problem, though. Again, we have to advertise, and how are we going to advertise that? That you're going to be working around two other employees of the county? I mean, how do you effectively advertise that?
That's why I'm asking, is there,
Yeah.
going to put a wall or something or separate entrance?
Again, that's just, again, that complicates everything until,
More cost?
well, it would add more cost too. And to do that, we're trying to maintain the historical significance of that building without putting in walls and that sort of
And
thing.
that's the primary historical significance?
Pardon?
The historical significance of the building is what is the primary on that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it actually, Andy,
It's
it
a-
has
it's a-
to. Yeah, we have no choice.
Okay.
And I do think from a legal perspective, you need to be a little bit careful if you're going to lease that space without a divider. Because if it's open, you do run into issues of privacy
Right.
and
Right.
county records. So I think we need to be careful about
Okay.
that. Yeah, just
Yeah.
my 2 cents.
No, it's just if you've ever been in that, it was a mansion. It's a sheriff's residence. It
Well,
wasn't
the front of it
designed.
was a home. It
Yeah.
was a home.
It wasn't designed to be office space. And it's large arched doorways. And to try to segregate this into two separate spaces for two separate entities, it would be a challenge, and especially with the strict requirements that we have in terms of advertising, and we have to take the best offer when we are leasing it, that it just complicates things. So. And again, our primary objective was to have this building be self-sustaining at the end of the day. We wanted to bring in enough revenue, and we're hoping that, just like any company that would come in, or any individual that would come in and rent something, hoping that they would make some improvements too, and that they would keep it up. Whereas right now, nobody's in there, nobody's taking care of it, and it's just slowly deteriorating. And we're hoping that we can stop that deterioration and that we can bring some life back into that. It really is it's a beautiful space. And it's just right on, it's kitty corner from the courthouse too. It has wonderful views. We're hoping that a law firm or real estate agency or an insurance agency or somebody will want to move in there.
Well, you just said it isn't designed for office space, and wouldn't there be offices in there?
Well,
You just said it wasn't designed to be
There are
office space.
rooms,
Yeah.
there are rooms, so.
It's, you know what, I think that this is something, that we can go on about this, but it kind of changes the whole direction of this, and maybe I just need time to digest it before we move too much further on it. Because it was originally thought of to be the offices for the Opera House employees. Now it seems like that's changed to offices, even though it's not designed for offices for a law firm or whatever you have in mind. Are we voting on this tonight, or is this just for discussion?
Just discussion,
Okay.
just bringing up everything
Yeah.
that's being discussed out there, to the floor for discussion for the public. So, I mean, it seems to be conflicted here. Yeah, I mean, we could go back and forth all day, but at least my position is it's our building. I didn't know we were in the business of trying to lease out space in all of our different buildings.
Yeah, I was just looking for a way to maintain it.
Maintain it, that's our job, and it's obviously been neglected for a little bit of time, but I know it was part of the plan. It was incorporated in that, and to me, I think it should be used, by county government. Who knows? Maybe we can move our offices over there. Got room for 7 of us over there?
Yeah, I wouldn't count on that.
No? All right. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe somebody can use it, so, within county government, so, all right. Well, we can move
I
on.
like you guys thinking outside the box personally, keep it up.
Well, let's get into buying property and flipping it and making revenue. So,
Bad.
Okay, the Public Works Facility Complex project.
Are you ready for that, Jeremy?
what's that?
The Public Works
Yeah.
presentation?
The highway garage.
You sure you want to listen to us?
should we wait till Andy and Carol come back?
No, go ahead, go ahead. I think he's been involved. He'll be back.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Jamal Anabtawi. I'm the co-owner of A&Z Engineering. We're in business for the past 20 years, and I brought with me the guy who did most of the work.
Andrew Waugh with Martin Riley Architects Engineers.
And I'll also introduce.
I'm Russ Verona with A&Z Engineering.
The county commissioner approached us probably early February to do a study for the 4 facilities, just to investigate, analyze, give us recommendation on what to do. I'm sure we gave you copies of the study, and we don't want to go, we know you're busy, we don't want to go through the study phase by phase, but what we did, we simplified what we noticed in, we took it building by building or site by site. We started with Valpo site because that's basically the worst and the oldest. And
So, so I guess what you're seeing on the screen here's just some of the photos from the study. Just wanted to kind of highlight some of the conditions. Most of these are from the Valpo site. There's several buildings on the site in the larger group, and with part of that, it's, I mean, as we can go through here real quick, but if there's questions, please stop me. There's a lot of
Are we
stuff.
talking about the highway?
The highway garage,
Yes.
or complex across the 4 different sites.
Yeah.
you could flip through the pictures.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, these are in the office, there's water damage that has affected several areas. There's structural issues on every building at Valpo, at the Valpo site. There's uses where the space has been adapted because of the age of the buildings into new uses that don't necessarily meet code. There's a lack of storage space. There's outdated low voltage systems. In this one, I mean, there's windows and doors that have air leakage issues. Just as an example, the one on the photo on the right, that piece of insulation that's behind the cabinet gets moved over at certain times of the year to block the egress door that is letting in air uncontrolled, which makes the space difficult to heat. There's, due to the age, there's a variety of plumbing systems, which is kind of shown on the left. There's county records that are stored in the basement, which...
Those are court documents, by the way.
Yes, that the space wasn't designed for, and it really wasn't the purpose for the longevity of those records. On the right, there's a lack of drainage has actually led plumbing lines to be stretched across the floor to get to floor drains that actually block parts of the traffic for staff.
Did you say, I'm sorry, did you say there's court documents? Why do we have court documents at Highway?
We're aware that there are court documents in there.
I think what happened was initially when they were working on the courthouse, they had moved documents over to the highway department, and the clerk's office never brought them back.
Can we get them out of there and get them back into the clerks?
I think a vast majority have been moved since they came in here and took those pictures. I think a lot of it is gone.
Yeah, can we?
But a lot of those are old highway records from back in the 20s that are stored down there now. I believe the vast majority of the stuff is down there.
Also, due to condensation issues, there's mildew and other, I mean, I hate to say mold, but mold and mildew on some surfaces down there. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
The employee break room is down in the basement, having to go underneath ductwork that doesn't meet the height restrictions on codes. That's under 7 feet where they're passing through there. There's also a cistern with pumps that is located in the break room to pump out of the facility. Here you can see water damage on the exterior that's causing the brick to spall, and there's also that wall on the left is, the picture doesn't really do it justice, but there's major structural damage with that wall and moving for the whole, of all the masonry and the entire wall itself. There's multiple places where window openings, like I said, have air leakage issues. When you go into the maintenance shop and other places, we have this glass block that's been damaged over the years. They've tried to repair it with foam. We have, on the left, you can kind of see the streaks where water is running down the inside of the wall from leaking window openings. On the photo on the right, you see damage to the electrical system from water and other salt. When this building was originally designed, it was mainly a male-dominated facility. There isn't a separation for restrooms in this maintenance area, so both, and since this was done, this county has increased women on the workforce for the road crews, and they're all sharing these two restrooms. There's a lack of storage space, which is kind of led to the storage of different materials on there. Water heaters also in the restroom, along with ductwork going through and sitting on the ground, and then materials being stored on that. The size of the equipment that the county uses has increased over the years, which it doesn't show well in this picture, but the floor cracks quite a bit due to the increase in weight that is due to the increase in size of equipment. Go to the next page. There's on the left we have deterioration of trench drain that's in the facilities. Have to actually remove pieces of metal as they're kind of come off as it rusts, so it's not puncturing tires and further damaging equipment. The photo on the right is a door that has been caulked shut to help reduce air infiltration. We have picture on the left is just one of the examples of overhead doors that have started to rust. Picture on the right is a sampling of many masonry issues throughout all of the buildings in the complex. You can see the cracking, and there's actually lateral displacement in this particular location that has gotten to the point where actually hornets have moved into the wall. The picture on the left is efforts have been made to try to plug up some of those openings, and also you can see the just more examples of the extent of the masonry and the distressed condition that it is in. On the right, more of the same, and also on the rust. Man door that's rusted considerably, and leading to will eventually fail. On the right, we're moving over to the salt barn. There's shingle damage, loss of granules, it's at the end of its life. There's also missing roof leaks, missing shingles. I think the next slide's going to have some shots where you can start to see discoloration and evidence of those roof leaks on the roof deck, more rusting metal. Next page. Left have sheathing that's deteriorated and lets wood in. On the right, we're getting into some interior structural issues.
This is where, an engineering point of view here, I think this part of the building is I would not hesitate to say it's dangerous. This floor has been lowered. Once beams are poured and you mess with the slab, you mess with the integrity of the beams, so it doesn't carry supports. This space right here, 3 feet lowered, just to get the equipments in there. So,
I have a question. Is that, in that picture there with the concrete, it looks like it's about half-inch off?
yeah, show the next one. I think we have more, oops. I thought there's a picture that shows the gap.
There is a better picture.
Yeah.
I think it might be the one after this.
Okay.
But there is a displacement in those masonry piers as well, along with cracking. This just, when the one on the left is just, when it was lowered, the whole area of this particular building is lower than everything, so stone and everything else is just more maintenance to try to keep it in an operational condition. The photo on the right, the same building, it's when the floor was lowered, egress doors for, in case there was just, access to the building, but in case there was any sort of issue to get out of the building, those were blocked up. Go ahead to the next slide. And on the left,
There it is.
Yeah.
so it's on the left, to get out of that particular space, you're having to go up a wood platform and railing to the one-man door in that. And on the right, you can see where the concrete footer was poured originally for
That's the one you're talking about.
that pier. And that's all of the piers in that particular building are like that. If you go to the next slide, I think we'll have, if you look on the left, that is a central column. That is a steel column in the center. It rusted through, it has been repaired, and now the repair is almost rusted through, and is definitely dangerous. You're parking.
God forbid somebody has an accident and runs through it.
And that.
Yeah, that will be a disaster.
In that particular location, you're
You got
parking
two
3 to
beams
4
that go over.
trucks.
Yeah, you got 2 beams, so if that goes, the whole roof goes.
Exactly.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
holding 2 beams.
And you're parking 3 to 4 trucks
Trucks in it.
around that. And the photo on the right just kind of further reiterates that displacement. And here we go. The picture on the left, hole in the masonry wall, that's not the only one. That was just a sample. Picture on the right, similar for the cracking and around openings. There is displacement
Concrete blocks
in
there.
the blocks there as well. But, yeah. And this is another example of cracking around openings and more displacement at a different location. Go ahead and go to the next one. Figure on the left, honestly, the door frame, I believe, is about all that's holding 2 of those blocks up. The photo on the right is, this particular one is the sign shop, which the main access to that area has this steel stair that's pulling away from the building, not necessarily a safe condition. Also, just one of the other items with that is that there's staff in there and they're actually have to walk outside 7,500 yards just to even get to a facility that has restrooms.
Is the building off kilter with the line and the concrete, or is the stair sinking?
I believe the stair is just moving away from the building in this particular area. It had some concrete underneath it, but there's definite movement.
There's no support there.
Go to the next one. This was, and this it was reiterating there's a lot of heavy equipment that sits outside at all.
Expensive equipment,
Yeah,
too.
at the Valparaiso site, along with Chesterton and Hebron, that just leads to the this accelerated deterioration due to rust, animal damage that could be better dealt with if there was facility space to actually store those out of the elements. The one on the left is reiterating that. The truck, a lot of the trucks have to sit outside for the same reason. It's not just plows, but the trucks themselves. I believe Jim indicated that each one of those trucks currently would cost about $300,000 to replace, if I'm not mistaken. Photo on the right, just kind of showing some pictures of Chesterton, the fence there. That site's split between two sides of a road. These pictures are mainly on the right side.
The letter
or
C in
east side.
front of the numbers, by the way, it tells you the indication of the building, Chesterton. The first one was Valpo.
Yeah, and all these photos in the study are referenced in the text to kind of link that back. This is underside, next photo or slide. And this is kind of the siding issues with that cold storage facility that's in the Chesterton location, and just an example of the sort of damage we have there. That's, even though it's a building and standing, there's a lot of water and other issues that can migrate inside and deteriorate the
These
overall
buildings were originally put up there in the 70s, so you know.
Next slide. Foundation on the left that is remaining from when a building was taken down, and more equipment on the right. Aside from a copy of the overall study that you have in front of you, we kind of tried to condense down, so the other 2 pages that were kind of tucked underneath that are more of a bulleted list of all those, some of those corresponding to photos and others that aren't.
Saves you some reading material.
Yeah, it's.
I read it.
Thank you.
I read it.
I mean, there's across all of South Haven, that's the newest facility, not really any issues there, but Chesterton and Hebron could use a little bit of work, but the main definite issue is at the Valparaiso site. With the proper planning and everything, we felt that using the existing site is possible without having to acquire more property. And it's kind of just a sample of one of we did 15, 20 different iterations that then we shared with the other partners on this study, and then also ultimately shared with the commissioners and the staff. This was one of them that it is possible to reuse the site, not have to acquire more land, and actually take care of all the issues that you have with the existing facilities that really, there's a lot of deficiencies is where it gets down to.
This option here was concluded by the committee of engineers, architect, and the staff of the highway. That was the best option. They think mobilities, how to move the trucks in and out, places to store all type of materials. There's a place for washing the trucks, since the current place does not have any, I don't know how you wash it.
So
Rain, hope for rain.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to run through this, I mean, we're talking truck parking to get the main road vehicles undercover and include, there's some space for expansion if needed in the future. It addresses office space that, and that it also includes moving, it includes space for moving the weights and measures group out of this building and locating on this site. And then there's maintenance shop area and fabrication shop area that would expand the facility upon the capabilities of the facilities now. Currently, there's no fire suppression in the existing maintenance shop. I think there is a fire alarm, but no fire suppression. There's no dedicated exhaust
The
ventilation
is
system.
terrible.
And that would go for the fabrication areas as well with welding and things like that. There's a little bit of a hood, but not anything that would address equipment itself.
And our plan is, the highway department is not gonna take vacation for when they construct this building, so this building, the existing building will be operational while the new construction going on. So we planned it that way.
Yes, that definitely led to, was a major component of this layout. And this also consolidates maintenance capacity that is spread out across the 3 different sites. It removes some of the duplication of part storage that has to be on all 3 sites because those surfaces are spread across it.
Our intention is to make the Valparaiso is the central location and works together with the 3 other locations, so make sure the operation fluid.
And then, aside from just office space for weights and measures, this also accommodates truck parking that they use out in the garage facility here, as well as the trailer storage that they have to go over to the highway department each day to get those trailers before they can go out and form their spaces as well. And also cold storage and a wash bay as well.
Just a question, the Chesterton location, you guys are just talking about the work on the east side of the street, correct? Because the west is all new, or newer?
The west side is newer for the truck parking, and there currently is maintenance operations in 1 to 2 bays of that as well. I mean, in this report, we did also, there aren't any locker room facilities, so we kind of looked at that as a possible addition onto the office areas of both Chesterton and Hebron. But the main part would be on the east side with cold storage, would be the larger component. And then,
Was I dreaming when I was reading it? Was there like 20 beds or something, like sleeping?
Not permanent. It's, we have in the office area, basically a staff room for staff meetings and things like that, and they would have cots that on the few times of a year, they would set those, bring those out of the storage room and just set them up in that training room.
Gotcha, just room that could be converted.
Yeah, there's no permanent
Sleeping quarters.
sleeping quarters at all.
Want to rent out beds now? Is that what you want to do?
My wife might.
Generate some income?
Well, I think if we move weights and measures, we can lease that space out here then too, right? Is that the plan?
For the council.
Move weights and measures?
Yeah, lease
We
it
can
out
lease
to
that
us.
space out?
Actually, good idea.
You know, I have a question.
Yes,
Can move
ma'am.
council
I
out?
have a question.
You don't have to raise your
And it's a
hand.
woman question. I don't understand enough about the salt. Right now, if I remember right, they're washed off outside, is that right?
The washouts?
Yeah. Or is it, it's a separate place? My concern is the salt that you're spraying. Now, is this inside now? Is this gonna be in the new building inside?
There would be a separate, correct me if I'm wrong, a separate bay area
That would
standing on its
capture-
own, where you drive in, you would wash off, drive out.
Okay, so it would be enclosed where the salt
Yeah.
wouldn't,
Yeah,
Right.
currently we don't have that ability. The only way that we can wash any of our trucks is to drive them individually into the mechanic's garage, have them get out, stop whatever they're doing, move out of the way, wash it off, and then move back out. And you're right, you have that problem of you're spraying that salt all over
Exactly.
everything. And walking through that garage, you can see where that has been, what problems that has caused.
Yeah, and, I mean, in addition to that, one of the items this is a schematic, it's very early, but along with that wash bay, when you have a dedicated space like that, not only does it limit
how that would affect other parts of the building, you can actually capture that salt and actually store it as a brine and use that to actually treat roads. NDOT uses that on multiple facilities.
Use, reuse, recycle, I like it.
Yep.
Recycling.
Is that it?
But, I mean, unless you have questions, I mean,
Okay, are you gonna get this number lowered?
We're not gonna discuss numbers since Scott already spent so much time discussing numbers. No, just kidding.
Where's the highest number?
No, honestly, the cost of construction, anybody who's in construction knows you cannot put your fingers on a cost these days. That's why they don't call it cost estimate, they call it estimate. Because roadways used to cost you $1 million for a mile, now it's $3.5 million. Just as an example. So materials, shipping, everything is expensive. So we were conservative in this estimate. I guarantee you that there's 20% contingency in there. Because, like Scott said, we have not even surveyed the place. You have not dug, and hopefully there's no contamination, there's no...
Seriously?
So,
When was that building built?
53 years ago.
Well, that's the garage. As far as we can tell, the lower garage by the sign shop was built in the 30s. That's why they dug the foundation.
Yeah, ground,
Well,
everything
Mr.
should be
Blair,
clean.
Can I ask you a question? So when was the last time any real effort has been done to upgrade the highway department, if ever?
Then when they built the, well, South Haven garage, I guess, but as far as at the Valparaiso site,
Yeah.
I can't honestly answer that question.
Were we still doing horse and buggy, just out of curiosity?
Well, the one that lower
Well,
garage.
it's been.
It's been a
to
while.
answer your question, Andy, the commissioners over the years in the council has, they, just 4 years ago, I think it was 4 years ago, we did the South Haven garage. And that was actually done through the RDC, Regional Development.
Okay.
Wasn't done through the commissioner's office. But the commissioner's office and the council approved it. And then in 2007, somewhere in there, they did the North County Garage in Chesterton. They improved that, and that's still in very good shape. It's a nice looking facility if you drive by. Now, across the street ain't so nice. That's its ugly sister, but there needs to be something done there. But, periodically it has, but, people don't understand is that we have 4 different locations because we're taking care of 800 miles of county road, more than 800 miles of county road, and it grows every time we put in a subdivision, it grows. And so, and each property has multiple buildings on it. So when we talk about, when you look at this price tag of say, initially was thrown out there to be $20 million, you go, oh my God. But keep in mind, we're talking about several buildings here and 3 different locations.
I've been out to the Valpo location. I do know you have a Flintstone mobile out there or something?
Flintstone mobile?
Yeah, the one where you can put your foot through the hole in the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, but the commissioner's goal here is, to the council, is this. We want to get this project at the $15 million level. That way we have $8 million left. That's going to be hard, I know.
You should have seen his face.
$8 million we can put toward the jail. That is our goal.
Thank you.
Or 17, I'm sorry. 17? Yes.
So so what is the cost of just the Valpo, the center garage?
I mean, it'd be most of it. You can see Hebron at the 2 last line items before the line are
20
Hebron and
million,
Chesterton.
well, 19 million. And that's a lot for a project.
Let me see this.
I thought you just said you were keeping it at
I was wondering
15.
how we were gonna do the jail and that, because this number's gotta get down, which Commissioner Riggs just stated. And, obviously, that's some big changes to this plan, so you guys redoing this plan, what's the next step to get to that 15? How does that work?
17.
Okay, I'm just, but what's the steps, Commissioner? What do you-
Well, first of all, this is not a plan, this is a study. This is what we've done in the architecture. have looked at it as well. Now, what once we're green lighted to move forward, to get some prints on it so we can get a bid out to finally see what we're looking at here. We will sit down and with their help, of course, we will work out something that fits into that footprint of whatever that bond is. We have to fit in there because we have to address some issues, what we consider to be critical in the jail at the same time.
Yeah, we'll make it fit your budget. I mean, that's no problem. It's just like you're building a home, you know, if you want different type of lights, there's cheap, expensive, middle. So it depends on all these items.
We just won't be able to have the weight room and the tiki bar.
Damn.
There was a question whether or not we were putting a weight room in there. I'm not trying to be a wise guy, which is maybe that.
I would have voted for it then.
You can sell memberships.
Yeah.
Upgrade.
Gain some revenue.
Maybe it come out of the weights and measures, and that's what they thought they heard. But, yeah, all we need to be is green lighted. We can come up, whether it's, $5 million or $17 million or whatever it is, we can make that work. But something has to be done. And it's honestly, this is far and away, even before we did any of the renovations to any of the other buildings 4 years ago, far and away, the worst building we have in our inventory. And it has been for a decade. Something should have been done to that building 20 years ago. You could make a case for it.
I honestly don't think it's safe. If
Well, with that one beam, you're showing
I
that
have 40
somebody hits it.
employees, I wouldn't let them work in that place.
Not only
That's
loss of
serious.
equipment, but loss of life. There's a real possibility from that.
It's the ventilation, it's what you.
That's what I was, when I went out there, it's the ventilation with the diesel trucks
Definitely needs.
All that stuff you.
starting up and you have the plume of smoke. I mean, that's, like I said, that any other building, we wouldn't have our county workers subjected to this. The bathrooms are horrible, the ventilation's horrible, there's OSHA violations. I mean, it's a,
So which building are you saying is unsafe, and what are they doing in there? Then you need to, if you're saying as an engineer that it's not unsafe, then it probably needs to be condemned immediately. If you're saying that.
Well, that's up to you guys.
It's not up to me, I'm not an engineer. I can't deem that thing
I
unsafe.
gave you my
Engineers
recommendation.
don't condemn our buildings.
Yeah.
We condemn
Okay.
our buildings.
Well, you've got an engineer that's saying that it's unsafe right now. Do we have people in it that are working?
I want him to be honest. Jeremy, I
was just in there yesterday, there's people working, there's no ventilation systems
have you
in
toured the
there.
building, Jeremy?
No, not recently, But
You don't have to be an engineer to walk through that property and see shifting cinder block that are primary walls, rotted, I don't know, those steel columns. And to know that there's something very wrong going on here. I mean, it's just wore out.
I agree.
We
I
have
agree with you.
egress doors that have been closed up for one reason or the other, so if something were to happen, getting out of it is, you hope you can make the only way out of a room that's left. Instead of having 2 or 3 exits, you got one.
That's violation of OSHA, ADA. I mean, you're talking, I'm not the policeman here, but if somebody comes and visit those buildings, you get penalized.
And I
I'm not an attorney either.
I struggled, I'll be honest with you, I struggled with throwing all of our warts out here in the public meeting. But you deserve to know, in order to make a decision. And if the public now knows and says, hey, or whatever, it is what it is.
Commissioner Biggs,
Yes.
pardon me, but I agree with you. It's an old, very old building. It needs to be taken care of. And that's why we're here tonight, to talk about it. My question is, how much office space do you have now? Do you have any idea of what the office
Square
space?
footage wise,
Yeah.
it's all in here.
It's all in the
I
report.
would just estimate probably 12.
80 by 80, isn't it? No.
1,200? And I'm seeing in this outlay here that your new office space is going to be 72.
Well, that also would include.
7,760?
That would hopefully include a meeting room. Right now, if we want to meet with all our 40-some employees, we have to go either stand outside or stand in the garage and talk.
Okay, but still, you're
Training
going,
room, whenever we want to do training, we have, luckily, the expo center's been nice, and she lets us use some rooms over there.
And Sylvia, when you're
that's a
designing.
huge.
Yeah, when you're designing a building like this, you have to design it with a thought you're gonna be in there for the next 30 or 40 years. You can't design it to what that highway department looks like right now, because
No, I
I'll guarantee you,
understand
20 years
that.
from now, it's gonna look totally different. We've got over $4 million just on the Valpo site of equipment that sets out every single day.
I'm talking about office space, square foot.
And-
That's what I'm talking about.
And actually,
I'm not talking about trucks or things
Yeah.
like that.
Well, those, quite honestly, that is one of the things we will sit down with the architect. Maybe we do make it smaller. Maybe that's where we save some money.
And I mean, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but I'd say 1,200's, I think the existing facility is larger than that.
I do too.
Especially since considering the basement's also being used for some
I do too.
portions.
Thank you.
So, Jim, remember when we were gonna build the animal shelter, you went out and got FBI quotes from those buildings, basic ones? Maybe we should do that at $3 million. It was a decade ago. We're gonna build an animal shelter for
Actually, it
animals,
was
yeah.
7 years
He ran
ago
out and
that our animal
brought some FBI prints for some basic buildings,
Excuse me, ma'am.
showed to the county.
To answer your question, it's in the report. The existing is 6,300 square feet,
My
and we're
report is a little
proposing
bit hard to
7,200. 70.
I didn't get a book.
Oh, you didn't?
I
We'll give you-
I asked him what page it's on.
One with folders.
Yeah, I've already read, I
25 minute extras.
All I gotta do is ask him what page it's on.
It's all right.
And the soft cost might.
All right. Engineering architect's fee, is that normal? 7%?
Oh, I was gonna plan on getting them down, Jeremy.
Is that normal?
It's abnormal.
Abnormal? $1.5 million, your cut?
I'm sure they'll work with us on that a little bit, right?
I am sure we could work
Try and
with
save
you.
some money, get that exhaust fan for us.
What we gave you here is a budget. Now, it's up to us and you to pick what you want, and we could meet whatever the demands and the requirements are.
So,
So you're planning on bonding? So what-
I'm not, did you say me?
No, they,
No, we're not.
you're not gonna bond this?
We're going to hopefully use the existing bond, when it's retired, just flip it into these two other
Okay,
projects.
you're gonna do this then instead of the jail.
No, we're gonna do this and a portion of the jail.
Oh, okay.
So what-
This price includes the jail.
No.
A
Portion of the jail.
the jail.
We're gonna have a $25 million bond retirement, we're gonna get about
Sylvia,
$23.5 net of
Are
proceeds.
you looking at the report itself?
I'm looking
Yeah.
at this sheet for
Yeah, the
cost.
jail's not in there. The jail's.
Jail's on the big sheet.
Jail's on the big sheet right here, Sylvia.
Okay,
That's it.
I got it.
I mean, honestly, I don't like it when, and I didn't ask for it. I don't like it when when an architect or an engineer gives me a projected cost. You know why? Because they don't build anything. They design it.
It's up to the contractor
That's right.
Huh?
to bid it. The
That's right.
contractor
If
bids
they
it.
do their job
At the
properly,
end
it's
of the
easy
day,
for us to bid a
We've got a
job.
certain amount of
Absolutely.
money to spend, and if they want to do the job, they're going to do it for that amount that we have. And I think that they will, and I think they'll do a great job if they were to design that building. Any of these engineering and architectural firms will. That is not the biggest job they'll ever see, but it's not a small job. It's a lot of money. And projects like this, because it's a highway garage or garages, they look really good in your inventory of projects that you've done, because there's not a lot of them, that's done throughout the course of the year.
So what I'm hearing you say is that this sheet I'm looking at is, you're going to work at trying to get it lower.
Or we ain't gonna do it.
Okay,
I'm not going outside of that bond amount.
okay.
So the jail then, I mean, I think I understand where you're going here then. we got, the last thing I got on the jail was January 23. That was $24 million?
Yeah, since then, Jeremy, we've asked Scott, and thank God you snuck around, and pull out the most critical parts of it. What's the dollar figure to address the most critical parts? That figure is right around $8 million.
And,
Was that the,
Is that this or not?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
What's priority 1 versus priority A? Aren't those the same thing?
Not necessarily.
They're not the same number.
Because there are some things, when you look at a report like this is the way we look at it. When I did this study, there's a couple good, these are good questions. Let me give you a quick example of how we did this, or explanation of how we did this. When you look at this sheet, this is just a summary of all the costs. This is a working tool. You can put an X in here and start selecting, and it automatically calculates it by priorities, 1 and A, or B, or 2. And here's why you see an A compared to a 1. When I'm looking at it as a facility assessment, all I'm looking at is individual items, their life expectancy, and how old they are now. That jail was built probably 22, 23 years ago or so. When you look at chillers, for example, they have maybe a life expectancy of 20 years. That's an easy one for us to, say, replace the chiller. So when you look at the way we broke this out, there's 5 categories. There's building envelope, building systems, which is your mechanical, electrical, plumbing, interior renovations, safety and security, site improvements. That's the exterior of the building. So since we built that building at that time, our company did, I just started it at the time, I wasn't involved in the construction. We also have the existing drawings, so we can get some real good detailed quantities and be able to take off the estimate pretty accurate. So when we look at it, we look at the condition of the building and what it would cost to bring it up and try to get another 20 years out of it. We're not looking at programmatic type uses. For example, there may be a video conference room that's no longer being used as that. It could become something. We didn't look at that. There's things like the mechanical equipment, lighting, and things that are obviously priority 1. There are things that don't necessarily need to be replaced, but they probably are high priority. And I could use like in school construction, for example. When we look at the building, the cameras security cameras, for example, probably here the same way. They're probably good, maybe, and they may need to be enhanced, but it's not like the building can't breathe without it. So what we're trying to do is give life into the building. So it's probably a top priority, but when you're looking at getting the building operating again, it's more important 1, 2, 3, such as switch gears are a problem, building automation systems, chillers, all the mechanical is a big issue. The roof is a big issue. I spent a lot of time walking through with those that take care of the jail, which is a phenomenal job they do, keeping that jail up to speed, constantly trying to keep up with some of the issues. I don't think there's very many things that have been replaced in the 20, 25-year period since it was built. There's a lot of original equipment there that's obvious. So I could look at things like that, the equipment and the condition of the interior, the paint and the floors and things like that, and what it would cost to replace those things. It's pretty easy to look at it from that. But what I can't really assess until we go to the next phase, which is design and getting an architect on board, are some of the conditions that exist that may have changed over the years because or haven't changed but need to change because of current requirements. We've done jails before where it was mandated that they had to correct some things. There's some issues in the jail, I know, that walking with their staff that really needs to be taken care of. Is it going to bring more life to the jail? Probably not, but it's probably a priority A because it's probably related to safety, security, or something programmatic. Mental health can carry
And those programs like that Scott's talking about would be like in, booking, processing, and there's a better way of doing it that keeps everybody safer compared to what they were doing 20, 25 years ago.
But we're not gonna put that off, are we, just to make sure we fall underneath? I mean, if it's the safety of our jailing staff,
What I was asked to do the first time was what I thought would be the top priority things that you had to, assign priority one, which really needs to be a team effort, not just me. I can go by what I see in my experience, which will get us close. It really needs everybody involved. So I did that. And then I was asked, what could you fit, what would be the top to fit in an $8 million project, for example, just to see where we end up. And that's really difficult, because again, when you get into mechanical, it becomes a roofing job. You gotta take care of the roof. We know that. It's really bad over there. And that's probably $2-3 million. And then you get into the mechanical, but where do you stop? Because some of the electrical components that go with it, the building automation, so the approach has to be really, it's easier to develop a program on how you're gonna approach renovating this building, knowing what you're gonna have downstream. So if you only have 8 million now and you can get 10 later, it's easier and more economical to design with that approach, because then you're not putting things in that may later be torn out. If you know you're gonna get it. And the way procurements are, that's probably not a bad approach. It takes, we're finding out 52 weeks for a switchgear. So if you have a switchgear that's running, but you need a new one, you may be better off staggering that, doing some work in 2023, and then bidding out another package in 2024 if funds are available or you have left over. So the whole idea is you see this as just a snapshot of dollars, but if you look, each one of these have a number. And I think on the document that I emailed, there's other tabs that would say what that number is and how we arrived. We've identified the problem, gave it a solution, and attached dollars to it. So an architect can very easily look at it and say, the issue here is that the exhaust fans in these units don't work. The solution is to replace them in their entirety. So now you know that's going to get done. So that's how you use this, and you just kind of use it to develop a program that meets your budget, in some cases your budget and your cash flow.
Am I looking at this right? The roofs alone are 3.1 million, correct? Right around 3 million just for the roofs.
It's pretty bad.
Right.
Did I answer your question?
You did, very detailed. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So the question is, I mean, as we can see here, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the jail. And not all of it is going to be, we're going to be able to service it with this current bond that we have. So there has to be discussion, how is that serviced?
Yeah,
It
because
has to be fixed.
Commissioner, I'm just thinking in my mind, it's just me, is our employees obviously are most important, right? They have to be safe in where they're working. But that goes for the jailers too. So maybe I'm an asshole, but I'd rather protect a life than a $400,000 truck. We can replace the truck. So if that means trucks are sitting outside, so we're making sure the jailers are safe, we need to make sure we're planning this accordingly.
Jeremy, you do understand that there's not a single building out there that we spoke about that we have workers in periodically. They're coming in and out of those buildings.
Well,
spending different variables of time in those buildings.
I just don't want to see us cutting. I mean, a lot goes on in the jail, right? I mean, and we house federal prisoners, we have federal revenue coming in. I don't know when it was built, like you said, that the jailing is at the most efficient, in what they're doing right now. Are they the safest? Are there safer things in programming the inside of there right now? Are we going to skip over that and wait to do it a couple of years? But are we risking? I want to make sure that whatever we're doing, if we've got to cut the garage down more to make certain that we're doing things properly in the jail first,
He said they're looking at to
I think the conversation that we need to have is, there shouldn't be any cutting on either one of these projects.
Well,
We're talking about a highway department that services over 800 miles of road. That our police go down, our fire go down, our people go to work every day, school buses go down, ambulances go down. If those roads ain't working, none of it works.
well, the highway garage doesn't fix the roads, right? The garage, that garage itself isn't taking care of that road you're speaking of.
The people who depend on the equipment and the tools in that garage fix those roads. They
Well, I'll tell you,
maintain
you know
those.
what, just listen here in the highway garage is kind of insulting, just being a blue collar worker. When you're in the winter starting a truck and you're sucking in exhaust fumes, I mean, in 2023, that's, to me, that's ridiculous. I mean, if you went out there, you would see, Jeremy, it's bad.
Jeremy,
I mean,
this
it's
isn't a
bad.
case of selecting one position in county government as more important than the other. You know me well enough to know, I respect and revere the jobs that are within that jail and that these people do day in and day out, these men and women. But if you've studied this the way that we have studied this, where you have gone out and touched this, and you go and sat and spoke to Skillman, and you're very familiar with what's going on in the jail. Out of the two, we feel the most urgency is with this garage right now. The jail needs things done to it. And keep in mind too, and you may not be aware of this, this report is 3 years old. 3 years old. It's not something we just found out about. I asked him to pull out the most critical portions of it that need to be addressed sooner rather than later.
You're saying that the jail report's 3 years old?
Yes.
The study was started in 2020. Costs are projected to today. But
So this is.
The jailers aren't at risk right now, because I assume if they were, our sheriff would be in front of us talking about safety issues as well.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well,
I mean, not that they're not at risk.
A jail is a jail. It's always risky to work in a jail. But if I thought for a minute that we had wall shifting in there, we had roofs that were iffy, that the bathrooms were, that the help were utilizing were questionable at best. You know, those kind of things. The exhaust, the air in the building was bad. The egress, it was limited, and we had no fire suppression in that building. I would be up here in front of you for a different reason, but that is not the case. That's why we have selected the garage and using $7 to $8 million to address the most critical elements in there. At the same time that we begin having conversation, how are we going to deal with the rest of this? And that's the conversation that we need to have.
I agree. There's a lot we need to have a conversation about, the roads themselves. You speak of that.
Yeah.
Red, you brought that up. I mean,
I just want from 50 to 100. It's horrible. I mean, and we can go around the county, and everybody has a road, I mean, we don't have enough funding for our roads. There you go. It's all money. It's just money, guys.
You're right.
It's all money.
You're right.
just money?
Just money, right? Just money.
I mean,
We just don't have enough of it right now.
But we need to communicate as to how we're going to approach these things, 3 to 5 years out, because it's not going to get any better. I don't care if if either one of these buildings, if they're not immediately addressed, it's not going to get any better. That's for sure. We do know.
Well, all right. I mean, Jim, I sat up with you for I don't know how long you were up here.
5 years.
5 years. I swear every meeting you talked about a strategic plan. We need to have a strategic plan in this county. We need to plan things out 1, 3, 5 years. And I'm glad and I appreciate you guys being here, I really do, talking about this, in front of the public. There's a lot out there. They have a right to know too. There's a lot going on. You're telling us roofs, this roof, I'm not sure what's going on with elections, moving elections, health department stuff, road funding. It seems like we got a lot. We got a lot of lifting to do, but
It's always been there, Jeremy.
yeah, I told
It's something
Red,
that's developed
there's
in the last
there's
5 months.
always something to do, always. There's always a
I
lot
just
to
think we need
do.
to have a priority list between the commissioners and the council. I mean, it's that simple. What are our priorities? For me, it might be different than Mike's. I get that.
Yeah.
But we have to have the conversation.
Well, a strategic plan is a 3 to 5 year plan. It's been missing for a long time up here. Yeah, like I said, you've heard me say it when I was on the council. But let me say this, Jerry, this is not the time to stop making decisions and wait for the next six months or 8 months or more until we come up with a plan. Those buildings need addressed now. There needs to be a decision made. And even if we may have different opinions as to, what to do or what not to do, the clock is ticking on that bond. If we're not cocked and ready to shoot off another project or projects by the end of December, we could lose it.
And that's, I don't know why Baker Tilly wasn't here. I think maybe they definitely need to be here next meeting to talk about this stuff. I mean, if we lose the bond, what's the ultimate thing? We lose that rate?
You lose the levy, and then you have to have a
The
referendum.
levy
Why do you have-
drops.
We
The
can't
levy
do-
drops.
No, Scott, you have to stop shaking your head. I'm sorry, Scott.
Is he still here?
Yeah, that's who he's still here. That's why I saw him saying something, so.
What's the question?
Jeremy?
I mean, if we don't,
Here, my understanding of the bond right now is this, is that you talked to Baker Tilly, you talked to bond counsel, you asked the pointing question, how much are we able to bond this year without going into a referendum? The answer was $25 million.
Okay.
Okay? The second question was, what would happen, directly to, I think, to the tricky question that you're asking with the levy. So the answer comes down to this. I think at one point in time, under the 2 years ago, under a previous officer, there was a plan to swap out at the end of the payment of this, we'd swap out and keep the levy. On that phone call with Baker Tilly and the bond council, we were going to be able to have the levy, wasn't necessarily tied to the swap. So in other words, go out, I asked the question, we go out right now, does it create a new levy? Yes. We got into the detailed conversation as to where the levy is of the current jail bond, how that's been tracking as it relates to assessed valuation, and I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of that because we'd be here until midnight. But at the end of the day, what we have right now is about, on average, I believe off the top of my head, about 2.5 cents per $100, I believe it was, is being applied on the rate to our assessed valuation that's funding our current bond. When we do the bond, we're up to about $25 million, we will be under that current tax levy with our current AV, meaning no effective tax rate to the citizens of Lee. Okay? And then we were told that we could do another, saying this is just for information purposes, we could do another $25 million bond, 366 days later. At that point in time, we'd have a better idea of what the levy came in at on the first bond, and we would be able to average both the tax levy and the AVs on our current bond, and be able to give everyone a much better idea of how much, if any, that second $25 million would raise the base tax rate of the levy.
So what I'm hearing you're saying, we do have $25 million that you could bond for right now without having any.
When we get to the end of this year, and we retire our current bond, we have our last payment this year, okay? Whether it's May, December, or January, I don't want to get caught in what fiscal year. But at the end of this year, December or January, our current bond will be paid off. If we got another bond, started the process, got another bond issued this year, then we would effectively, instead of swapping, we would be retiring one and creating another. The net effect to the citizens would look roughly the same or less. this point.
Well, Scott, isn't it true, we can actually approve that bond right now?
We can start the process right now because it takes several meetings.
Regardless of what we decide to do, right?
And that was my point, is really Essence should be started this.
Right.
Well, my question was, what if we didn't? What if, as we're planning this out, it took us till February of next year, and that bond was paid off, and it would lower the taxes, and then we decided in February or March to bond? I mean, what's the effect of that then? I
My
mean,
understanding from that call with bond counsel and Baker Tilly is that there would be a 1 year in which that 2.5 cents per hundred isn't on the tax rolls, and then it would go back on. So it would look like a small dip, and then back to where we were.
so we're really not losing it, then, I mean, it does, are we,
Well, you're gonna have
Are we-
soft costs there, Jeremy, and Scott, correct me if you think I'm wrong, that if we let it, that we let it go exempt, and if we go a year later to start it up again, or 8 months later to start it up again, there's gonna be costs associated that with bond counsel.
Yeah, either way, we're gonna have bond counsel and Baker Tilly. We're probably, I think your estimates, I heard everyone bouncing around, you know, there's probably $25 million bond. Off the top of my head, I would say, you're gonna get at least 23 and a half, if not 24. When it's all said and done. And part of it will be, part of that, and so everyone in the crowd doesn't think that $500,000 or there's $1 million between bond counsel and Baker Tilly, is that part of the, when the bond is originally dispersed, there's money put back and set aside, that is maybe 20, 30, 40% of a bond payment or a year payment or something along those lines. It all depends on how it's written up. But a substantial portion of that, and that's where we are reaping those benefits in 2023, because when this bond was originally done, the same thing happened. So that's why when you look at the Baker Tilly report, it looks like our tax levy went down so much. It was because of that set aside of money originally. So, long story short, about 23, 24 million, and this bond, I think by all projections at this point, would not be raising the taxes.
why did Baker Tilly put in this report that, and I'll read it, the maximum issuance for a single project under the referendum threshold is 18.3 million? And we're talking about 25.
I think we need to have them here to explain that, but I can tell you, we asked a very pointed question. How much can we do? Other than what we were attempting to do, we were trying to stay at or below the current levy within our assessed valuation, so that we were not having a tax rate increase on citizens. And how much could we get with avoiding a referendum? The answer we got, bond counsel and Baker Tilly at the same time on the same phone call, was 25 million.
And the number you're talking about, Jeremy, is if it went to referendum, that's the most, or,
No,
that's the most we could spend before going to referendum.
Okay, 18 million, but we keep talking about 25 million.
It'd be on one project, 18 million on one project.
There's an $18 million, there is an $18 million referendum. It's not 18 million. The referendum number is based upon an equation of many things that go together. Everyone's number is different. It may be the fact, and I, again, will talk to Baker Tilly Bond Council. Tonight, my answer would be maybe it's because it's two projects. When we were talking on the phone with them, it was two projects. So maybe one project has a maximum again. I really am guessing.
It's probably important to know as if they're moving forward and looking at, you know, these costs to try to cut down, they're trying to cut $50 million worth of projects into, right now, 25, and maybe that 25 is really 18 before, you
No,
know.
it's not 18, because then we asked them again, because they said in 360, so if we approved going forward with a bond in July, 366 days later, we could approve a second bond, as long as it was for a different project, as long as it was for a distinct project. And so we could potentially break up, as an example, the jail project into very distinct components, but it had to be a different project.
But that second bond will be an impact on the taxpayer.
It could, and that's why we had them illustrate what would that look like. We knew we didn't have to go to referendum, but we wanted to know what that would look like.
Yeah, that's
why we
that's not a definite that it would. It could, but it's not definite. And even if it was, nobody knows right now to what extent it would be.
Yeah, we just asked them to do, just so we can see what those numbers look like, so you can see what those numbers look like. And there's nothing that says you have to do a second bond, or if you did a second bond for that dollar amount, we were just doing it for illustrative purposes, just to see what it would look like.
Well, I think we definitely need, I mean, because this is Baker Tilly who wrote this, and the way I read it is we can only go up to 18 million, but maybe there's something else in
Something
it.
about that 18.
Maybe, but I think that as you guys are looking at cutting $50 million worth of projects down to 25 million, if that's really 18 million, that,
I'm not, yeah, but Jeremy, I'm not taking $50 million worth of projects and trying to cut it down to.
all right, John, I'm just using the two numbers that I have in front of me.
Yeah.
I have, you know,
I'm looking at, you know, basically $23.5 million available to us, and hoping both of those projects can fit into that figure. There are these, a second bond is a total different discussion. And you're right, everyone who said it, Baker Tilly needs to be in front of us if we're gonna have it.
yeah. Well, all right, yeah, I think maybe next month they really need to be in front of us to answer some questions, you know, before we take the next step.
I would ask him
Yeah.
as board president to come before your.
Yeah, that's fine, then I will. I'll have him here. I'll request him here, for sure. So, all right, is there anything else? I know it's long. It's gonna be a long night. We still have to run through some things. I put some other things on here, you know, we could talk about them at a later date. I mean, the health department, if there's an update, are you guys doing anything with that? You wanna talk about it at a later date? Health department elections, or, I mean, not sure what
We can
prompted that.
come back to a later date, but you've got, I know at least one board member that has attended those admin meetings, that, I don't know why they're not reporting back to your board, but.
This is the first time we just got here. I mean,
Yeah, well, that's the whole purpose of the admin meetings, for people to come, and so, but I get it. You want a presentation, we'll give you one.
well, I think for the record, I mean, for the
What has been for the
taxpayers,
record?
well, we got an idea too. We record in here, have the admin meetings in here and record them.
If the room's available, that's not a problem. If the room's available.
Make it available.
If you want a presentation on what's going on in the health department, we can make that.
Well, I think if anything's gonna cost extra money that isn't budgeted, I think we should be in.
Yeah, it's not.
Discussing it.
Yeah. That's in budget.
All right.
The reason we had that admin meeting was because we had a new council person who happened to be the liaison for the three departments that were affected, and we had not brought in the department heads recently just to give them a status update, and we wanted to invite all of the council liaisons just so they knew about the project.
And that's fine, but the entire board needs to know what's going on, you know, not just one or two, and it's not, it's, all this has to be, should be discussed in public in front of the entire board, but.
If you want a presentation, just ask me, you'll get a
Yeah,
presentation.
all right. Well, all right, we're gonna move on then. I appreciate it. We got a lot more work to do. Unless you guys wanna talk about anything else while they're here. All right, Judge Tody, thank you guys, appreciate you.
Thank you.
He
Thank you guys for
he
all-
did call,
all that.
he contacted the office, said he was
Oh, they're not.
caught up. There was a transfer of $161.73 from legal to liability insurance, reason needed transfer. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Transfer needed because liability insurance. So, he did call, so, you guys want me to sit up there and represent Judge Tody? I will.
First and
So,
second.
motion second, further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign, juvenile probation. I appreciate everybody being patient through that.
So a reduction, so moved.
There's a reduction of $8,000 to salaries, reason reduction needed because they have a probation line officer position that has been vacated. They're replacing them with a new employee at a reduced rate, and that reduction will accompany Form 144, that will reflect that reduction of $7,094 to $67,326.50 for supervisor, down to $68,826.50 to $45,634 probation
motion for
officer.
both.
Reason, there's a motion second on the floor, further discussion. Can we get a roll call on the reduction and the 144 to reflect that, right?
Andy Bozak?
Yes.
Mike Brickner?
Yes.
Sylvia Graham?
Yes.
Greg Sims?
Yes.
Andy Bassett?
Yes.
Red Stone?
Yes.
Jeremy Raves?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it, guys.
All right. Yes, appreciate it. Highway, we got local roads and street, LRS, local roads and streets fund, transfer $60,000 from lease payments to motor vehicles. Reason, transfer needed to purchase replacement of a loader. JD 624P loader.
We were able to find a one-year turn-in, so where the snow removal companies lease them, we can get this one at a cut rate, and they're going to give us a decent trade-in on the one with the rust holes in it right now, so.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion, second. Second. Further discussion, questions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. EMA General Fund transfer $850 from other supplies to training and education. Reason transfer needed for travel expenses for training class to meet for job requirements. Appreciate you sticking around for $850.
Motion.
Motion.
Second with a.
Second with
question.
some questions.
Just one. What is, you wrote in a job requirement. What is the training for?
It's to send our people to school to learn how to work on these sirens. My entire
Okay.
training
Okay.
budget for the year is $2,500, and that's how much the class costs, so we didn't have any money for hotel or anything.
That's fine.
Any other questions? All in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Hang on, Lance, tell them about your flagpole. Your,
Come on.
I don't know. Greg hasn't
on
been here
Flag
long
Day, you're
enough.
gonna have your dedication.
Well, our flagpole will be done probably tomorrow. Our project, the dedication's gonna be on the 14th, so I'll be sending things out. That was.
On Flag Day.
Yeah, on Flag Day.
At
Everything was
noon.
Donated by the McMillan Family Foundation. Highway helped us out with digging it out. Our people laid the brick along with the Girl Scouts of America, so it cost the county nothing to get it all done. So it's nice, drive by and see it. Looks really good. Yeah.
Appreciate you. Thank you. E911 donation fund, there's an additional $200 to other supplies. Appropriation needed to other supplies used for telecommunication week, April 9th to the 15th.
Make a motion.
Motion. Was there a second?
Second.
Second. Couple seconds. Appreciate you sticking around for $200. All in, it's an additional. Can we get a roll call? Additional?
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Andy Bozak. Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes. Sheriff, General Fund, additional.
Evening.
Good evening. Thank you for sticking around for all of this.
Absolutely.
What? Jesus, you get your own page.
Sorry.
$20,000 to returning fugitive. Reason, appropriation needed to cover costs of nationwide extradition of fugitives at the request of the prosecutor. I don't know if that's connected. You want to do that different? That's overtime for something else? You want to do that additional?
No, this is from outside contractor, for long-distance transports.
The transfer is?
Yep,
Okay.
they've been from like Missouri, California, Arizona, Maryland. Those are long hauls.
Okay, well, this is training, so I was talking about the 10,000.
I make a motion.
On the
Second.
additional?
On the additional only.
Okay, there's a
Correct.
motion, second on the $20,000 additional.
Oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I misunderstood
No,
that.
you're good. Further questions? Can we get a roll call on the additional?
Andy Vasquez.
Oh,
Absent.
yes.
Smoking cigarettes or going
Greg
to the bathroom?
Sims.
Yes.
Andy Bozak. He left
Indisposed.
again.
Yep.
Indisposed.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Andy Bozak.
Say yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes, transfer $10,000 from salaries to overtime. Transfer needed to cover the cost of overtime to fill shift shortages while officers are in FTO, Field Training Officer Program.
I make a motion, we transfer the covered cost of the overtime.
Motion. Second, discussion. All in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Firearms Training Fund, additional $10,000 uniform and clothing. Reason appropriation needed to cover uniforms for patrol and jail officers. It looks like these other ones are the same. If you guys don't mind, maybe we can do these together, because it's an additional $10,000 to uniform and clothing. Appropriation needed to cover uniforms for patrol and jail officers. Looks like the next one, that was out of Drug Task Force Fund. This one is the Sheriff DEA Forfeiture Proceeds Fund. There's an additional $10,000 to uniform and clothing. Appropriation needed to cover uniforms, patrol, and jail officers. Those three appropriations are all for the same thing.
I second Sylvia's motion.
There's a motion, and a second for all three of those, is that correct? Second, discussion? Seeing none, can we get a roll call on those three additionals?
Red Stone.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes, staying under the Sheriff DEA Forfeiture Fund, There's another additional $25,905 to equipment rentals. The reason appropriation needed to cover the cost of adding in-car video system to 2 vehicles.
I make a,
Motion.
second.
Motion second, discussion. Seeing none, can we get a roll call on this additional?
Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
All right, moving on to jail. Jail General Fund, transfer $40,000 from salaries to overtime. Reason to cover the cost of overtime to fill shift shortages due to staffing issues.
Take a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Seconds. Discussion. Seeing none, can we get, nope. All in favor of the transfer signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public Safety Data Tech Fund. There's an additional $10,000 to uniform and clothing. More of that to cover the cost of uniforms for patrol and jail officers.
I make a motion, we cover the cost of
Second.
uniforms for patrol officers.
Motion second, discussion. All, can we get a roll call on the additional?
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Real
Greg
quick,
Sims.
are you gonna have
Yes.
this fixed in your budget next year, so $40,000 that we just transferred?
Well, that, yeah, from what I understand, that was also a reduction from last year, budget for this year. So, yeah, that's why we're moving this all around now.
Thank you.
Additional $125,000 to equipment rentals. Reason appropriation needed to cover the cost of LPRs, license plate recognition camera system, expecting grant reimbursement. I just read the article in the newspaper yesterday. Hey,
Yay.
I make a motion.
motion.
Second.
Second, couple seconds, discussion.
Just in the car, are these more on the street?
These are the stationary ones on the roadway.
Additional than they already have?
It's
No,
not-
this is to pay for what
ones we
is
do have,
already
We already
there.
got it.
Are there any more, are there more gonna go up, or?
No, we're actually going to be doing some reductions.
Oh, really?
Yeah, some cities and towns where they currently are, I've been talking to those law enforcement administrators. They have them, after January, write some costs into their budgets to adopt some that are already in those jurisdictions.
Very good.
Plus, what we also did is we evaluated what we currently have, where their usefulness is, if they're being, if we're using them, and if we haven't, we're going to reduce those. So, yeah, substantially. So that's reducing the price.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Can we get a roll call on that additional?
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes, inmate processing fee fund additional, the same thing, $10,000 uniform and clothing. Reason to cover cost of uniforms for patrol and jail officers.
Move to approve.
We skipped one.
Did I?
Yeah,
Sorry, thank you.
14,211.
I apologize. Additional.
I make a motion.
Under the Public Data Tech Fund, $14,000. $14,211 contractual services, reason to cover costs of Lexipol, standard operating procedures, law enforcement supplemental manuals.
Move to approve.
Motion.
Second.
Second, discussion. We get a roll call on that additional under the
Mike
public
Brickner.
safety.
Yes.
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Now the inmate processing fee, the additional $10,000 for uniform.
I make, second.
For patrol and jail officers. Motion second, discussion, roll call, please.
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks for hanging around.
Hey, no problem, thank you.
These are cheaters, huh?
Oh, auditor, non-reverting fund, an additional $13,000 to equipment, to other equipment. Reason additional appropriation needed to scan plats, appropriation needed to scan plats in, and they will be hyperlinked.
We're working with, I'll have Dave explain it to you. We're going to start our GIS project, but we also have some things that need to be linked over to stormwater and things like that, so.
Yeah, the maps are very, very large. What we want to do is make sure these get scanned in for the sake of preserving these maps, as well as linking them into stormwater and the GIS purposes so that they can be accessed by the public moving forward.
We're getting the same printer that they have at the stormwater. What we're gonna do is use it, and then we're gonna take it downstairs and let IT use it, and they have a staff member down there so they can do other for the county.
Oh, cool.
Is this not happening now? What are we doing with them now?
They sit there.
They're just stacked, they're not scanned.
Exactly.
Is this gonna be just a one-time cost or reoccurring every year?
One-time cost.
Do you have a motion?
No. So if you'd like to make it.
Motion.
Second.
Motion, second. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Andy Bozak.
Yes.
Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes. Transfer $48,000 from salaries to other equipment. There's a second transfer included in there, $5,000 from medical life insurance to other equipment, reason needed for providing time clocks for county payroll system.
Is that for your office or other?
Well, what
office?
happened was in 2017, part of the program was to have these time clocks used, but everybody was using their computers instead. So I've ordered 20 time clocks for the whole county.
Why don't they use their computers instead?
Because the computers, if you have 10 people in one office trying to get on at the same time, it can be a delay.
Do you have 48,000 in salaries to take it
That's
out?
why I'm transferring it.
Can you guys show us this? Can you guys pull these funds up for us so we can actually see what's in it?
It's on, we already have non-reverting funds, the budget.
Is that a big pain in the butt to do? I just asked.
Pardon?
Is that really hard to do? Pull this up or no?
You guys see
No.
the
He's in
non-reverting
the-
fund?
Yeah, the non-reverting funds. You understand what happens with the non-reverting funds? It's from the homesteads that we collect
Yes.
from the individuals that might have homesteads that might have a duplicate in another county. And when the money comes back, it goes into that. We, as the auditor, can only use so much of it. The rest of it goes to the county. There was a position that was open and I didn't.
We're not filling it, that's
I
why
wasn't filling it. That's why I transferred part of the FICA plus the salary.
That's a non-reverting fund.
Well, I think you answered my question.
I make a motion, we transfer 48,000 from salaries to other equipment.
There's a motion on the
Second.
floor.
Second.
There's a second.
Oh, do you want to do that's together
Wanna do
then?
both?
Yeah, then, and the 5,000 from medical life insurance and other equipment, you're right.
There's a motion, a second for both of the transfers. Any further discussion? I think Andy pulled it up in front of you. He had him work, and then he said, I don't want it anymore. All in favor of the two transfers signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, second reading. We made it.
Before the council have come the following matters for the budget. From the general fund, a reduction of 8,000 salaries, returning fugitives, 20 grand. Auditors non-reverting, other equipment, 13 grand. Firearms training, uniforms and clothing, 10 grand. Drug task force, uniforms and clothing, 10 grand. E911 donation, other supplies, $200. Public safety data, equipment rentals, $125,000. Contractual services, $14,211. Uniforms and clothing, 10 grand. Inmate processing, uniforms and clothing, 10 grand. Historical site preservation, contractual, $4,880. Sheriff DEA proceeds, uniforms and clothing, 10 grand. Equipment rentals, $25,905.
So it's in front of you for second reading.
Motion.
Motion, second for approving the second reading, what we did. We get any discussion? We a roll call on second reading?
Sylvia Graham.
Yes.
Mike Brickner.
Yes.
Andy Bozak. Greg Sims.
Yes.
Andy Vasquez.
Yes.
Red Stone.
Yes.
Jeremy Rivas.
Yes.
7-0.
All right, attorney's report.
Nothing tonight.
So, and I'll, quiet night.
Good news.
Were you?
Nothing bad.
Were you not here for the last 2 hours?
Well,
So, you guys, I put the health department thing on there, and I asked Harold to look it up, and I talked to the auditor a little bit today. Dave, you're supposed to have conversations?
Yeah, I'm gonna go down there with Sheila Thursday. That's when I'm scheduled to sit down with her and go over everything, so as soon as I get figures together, I'll report back to everybody.
Okay, maybe Harold was gonna look into this, the law, to see what this is all about. I mean, I guess there's some opt-in and opt-out of it, so, I'm not familiar with it. I don't know, why we would do one or the other, so, but it seems like, gaining up some money for the health department, so.
I have a question. On the county match part, would we have to come up with it out of the general fund, or they can come up with it from their fund? 'Cause there's a. You
Yeah,
don't know
that's,
anything.
That's,
You're learning.
Harold, do you wanna get together on that then?
I think that's a good idea.
Very good. I'll get with you.
Okay, all right, appreciate you guys. All right, thank you. All right, the land and water conservation grant fund discussions, Park Superintendent Jake, is he still here? You made it? You wanna talk about this? The matching grant fund, proposed project for the grant is to purchase and install 2 new concrete vault restrooms at Sunset Hill Park and have ADA compliant pads and pathways poured for them.
Yes. So we, as one of our projects in our master plan is new restrooms at Sunset Hill. We have a dilapidated closed restroom at our primary trailhead, which is also where our amphitheater's at, the IGRS railway display, and as well as one of our picnic shelters. And the only restroom up there was closed several years ago from water damage, never fixed, never reopened. It's not savable at this point, so the only option is a new restroom out in that area. In the campground, we have a privy. If you've ever used a privy, it's not nice. So it is an old restroom. So this project is to buy and install 2 concrete vault restrooms, which are, in my opinion, the better way to go. They're more affordable up front. They don't cost anything to run. The maintenance is zero because they're solid concrete vault restrooms. The only thing we would have is once or twice a year pumping. And then they're also more secure because we don't have to worry about building in a wetland septic system or a septic field or a mound septic system, so there's no infrastructure that needs to go in. They're very environmentally neutral and less risky. The entire project, I don't have the construction cost yet. I'm still waiting on a contractor to get me an estimate for that, for the concrete work and the land work and the backfill and all that. I'm estimating the project will cost a total of about $100,000. The restrooms themselves will cost about $66,000. So the rest of that will come from the groundwork, the concrete, the backfill, and all that. And they're all fully ADA compliant, which is something we need to focus on at Sunset Hill, is getting more access, more ADA accessibility out there, especially in our more popular, more heavily traveled areas. So what I wanted to talk to the council about was helping us with the grant match portion. So the Land Water Conservation Fund is a reimbursable grant handled by Indiana DNR that is used to allocate federal funds for outdoor recreation. It's a long process. It's kind of convoluted. I can give you more details about that. I'm currently writing the application now. But it is a 50% reimbursable grant. So if the whole project costs $100,000, they will reimburse $50,000. And that's what I wanted to ask the council, is if they would help us with that grant match. That way, largely, I don't have to tie up department funds while we're still doing other projects. In the meantime, if the council will help with the match, we can complete the application, submit it, and then if it gets federal review, move forward with it. And then once the project is completed and we receive the reimbursement, we would then give that $50,000 reimbursement back to the county council. So the actual long-term impact would be zero on the council's budget for this project. I think the department would actually eat the 50% that we're on the hook for.
So you just want to borrow 50 from us?
Does any reimbursement go in the
You're going
general
to come
fund?
get it for
Yeah, basically, I'm asking for a $50,000 loan. If we get the grant. That's the thing, and we wouldn't even need to move money in anticipation of it. We would just need the support from the council that says that you would help with the project if it's funded. And then if it does get approved, we're still talking 7 or 8 months before we know if we even get approved for it. The application's due in June. We'll find out in October if the DNR recommends it to the federal level, whether or not we actually got approved. So no money would actually need to move for quite some time. And then if we don't get the grant approved, then nothing happens.
I'm just going to make a comment. Are you doing all this yourself, looking into the grant and the restrooms?
Yeah, for the most part.
I had a couple questions. Well, first one's not a question. I think if we're looking to do a $23 million county garage bathroom, we'd be able to find the money to help out our park superintendent when the time came. The other thing is, and I don't know, we have a facilities director for the county. Do they get involved with anything like this when we're looking at restrooms for another county department? Is our facilities director, part of that process, or is he kind of on his own to do something like this?
I can't answer a little bit about that.
Okay.
Yeah, Daniel has actually been very, very helpful on
Okay.
several occasions with a lot of our, especially the more technical repairs like our HVAC units, the mechanical components where we don't have the skills in-house. And yeah, actually saved us from having to replace an entire HVAC unit because they could fix it and we couldn't. So actually saved us quite a bit of money so far.
Okay.
Yeah, the facilities has been very helpful every time we've asked.
So there's collaboration there. That's good. Thank
Yeah.
you.
To your point though, Mike, we should have a roof plan, you know, throughout the county, a service plan, a roof plan, a facilities plan, you know, anytime you take all your buildings and so we know going 10 years out, hey, we replace this building, we know we're gonna need $2-3 million in, I know it sounds 10 years, but 10 years goes by quick, so, you know, you just keep kind of rolling into it, but, you know, so there should be a matrix or a, you know, he might have it, I don't know.
Well, I think what we have is we have, under the CCD, we do the vehicle replacement and IT equipment on a regular rotating basis. But as far as capital assets, buildings and otherwise, no, that's not been the procedure in the past. But it's something that probably should be addressed.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion in support of this project. If you guys do get the grant, that we will loan you the money.
I second that motion.
There's a motion, a second on the floor in support of this, this grant, so we can probably just take the money out of Andy and Red's salaries, so.
Oh, I'm sure we can find it, right?
So, yeah, we'll figure it.
We'll still be short.
Sorry.
But they'll have a bathroom to use.
Still be short. So is there any discussion on this? All right, all in favor of supporting this, signify by saying aye. Aye. Same sign.
Thank you,
All right,
guys.
you got it.
Thank you.
All right.
Great work.
2023 council appointments and council liaison appointments, I think this is pointed at Andy. You know, I don't know, Andy, if you're just taking over, if your intent was just to take over everything
Yes.
that Mike Justin had?
Yes, and regardless of what Sylvie said, I'm not taking anything from you, even though you offered. No, thank you.
She's trying to get off a lot.
Yeah.
She's been running hard for a long time. So she's probably looking for a little bit of a rest, so, all right, I think that's it. So is there any other matter that may properly come before the council? Like, just open it
We have
to.
a,
Somebody else's.
Okay, so it should come to no surprise that I've
You're coming here to talk about the Memorial Opera House?
not supportive of the money being spent on the MOH, yes. And, you know, Redstone may be new, but I'm not. And it is throwing money around recklessly. You know, as far as the bathrooms, can't somebody else foot the bill? Do a fundraiser. I mean, you guys, more and more. $5 million doesn't seem like it's enough. You want more and more and more. I'm sorry, do a fundraiser. Do something to help yourselves to, you know, improve the bathrooms, whatever you're gonna do with that. So, and since we have a shortage of this money for the jail and for safety, why don't we take some of that $5 million that you're gonna put towards the MOH that only benefits a small amount of people? So, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there somebody else?
Here, next to the rear.
I don't know.
No, stand up right there, yeah,
You gotta
yeah.
say who you are, yeah, and where you're from. You don't have to give your address, I don't think.
Hello, my name is Jason Lamelli. I'm a Porter County resident. Address is 375-3 West State Road 130.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Those Cheetos on.
Thank you, sir.
See if we could share.
Hoorah.
Oh, I gave it to him. Thank you. You get one anyway.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jason Edward Lamelli, and I'm a 42-year-old Porter County resident and an 8-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps. The Marine Corps instills in every Marine 3 common core values, which are honor, courage, and commitment. These aren't just words to recite mindlessly. I continue to live my life by these values because there's no such thing as an ex-Marine. The change is forever. Once a Marine, always a Marine. I worked for Porter County Highway Department from June 21st of 2022 until May 17th of 2023, where I was wrongfully terminated by Jim Polaric for simply asking too many questions and voicing my concerns about the red flags that I was noticing. When I am finished detailing my short yet extremely eye-opening experiences here at the Highway Department, I hope to open many of your eyes as well. The main points that I will be discussing here today are misappropriation of funds and blatant abuse of power in which Jim Polaric operates the Highway Department, cronyism in the Highway Department, and quid pro quo politics that has crept its way into these institutions. The first eye-opening red flag was last fall when a wage study was conducted. According to the Census Bureau, the average household income for Porter County, Indiana in 2021 was $80,547. The Porter County median household income is $17,804, higher than the median Indiana household income of $10,830, greater than the U.S. median household income. The numbers for 2022 did not come out yet. They don't come out until September of this year. Follow the money. How is it that a driver laborer gets a 20 cents an hour raise totaling $416 a year, while the superintendent and assistant superintendent received raises in the tens of thousands and new company vehicles? Why are county employees doing work on private property during business hours, using county equipment, and transferring county material to multiple homes and farms? Repairing or replacing driveways and/or culverts for citizens on their property, cutting out the old asphalt if it's an asphalt driveway, or removing the stone if it's a gravel one, hauling away the spoil, hauling fresh stone and asphalt back to the residents, then installing fresh stone as a base layer, and then pouring hot mix over the top of it. Or delivering tons of fill dirt to multiple farmers and multiple locations. I have personally delivered 120 tons to a farmer who lives on the corner of Route 2 and Division. The going rate for that amount of fill dirt is $4.50 a ton, which in turn equals out to $540 worth of material. Also, hauling 53 full loads in county dump trucks of asphalt grindings to a farm off of 1300 South and 350 East to make a staging pad. A full load of county dump truck is 12 tons. 12 times 53 equals 636 tons. The price of asphalt grindings now is about $11.50 a ton. So 636 multiplied by 11.50 equals $7,314 worth of material. You also have to consider the cost of labor, fuel, and county equipment used to make this happen. So it costs the taxpayers of Porter County much, much more. These are just some of the questionable deeds that I personally witnessed. At this moment, I bet you're all wondering why I'm bringing this information to you here and now. It is because I contacted the Director of Human Resources on multiple occasions, and I strongly feel that she is not able to do her job as well as she wants to because of the personal friendship between Jim Polaric and Jim Biggs. On April 20th, 2023, I went to the Human Resources Department to express my concerns on what was going on at the Highway Department. When I returned to work on April 24th, 2023, I felt outcasted, and I knew that I had a target on my back for blowing the whistle. Then, on May 15th, 2023, then the assistant superintendent was demoted due to an investigation that sparked from my initial trip to HR with nothing happening to Jim Polaric. Well, as I stated earlier, Jim Polaric operates the County Highway Department with absolute tyranny, with no one to hold him accountable for his actions. I have personally heard and seen Jim Polaric boast about how he can do or say whatever he wants because the commissioners back him fully. My question is it all the commissioners or just his friend, Jim Biggs? I originally brought up my concerns up through my chain of command, which fell on deaf ears. And I was told repeatedly, if you don't like it here, there's the door. On the morning of May 17th, 2023, I had an encounter with Jim Polaric that I felt was a little off. After that encounter, it was confirmed that Jim Polaric was gunning for me. I knew he had it out for me. I called HR to explain what had happened to me that morning and was notified by the HR director that Jim Polaric did not take her recommendations on how to handle the situation and that he was going to fire me for insubordination at the end of the workday. I immediately sent out a group text message to everyone that was present during our encounter that morning, asking them to write a statement of what happened. Somehow, word got back to Jim, and he confronted my foreman and said, if anyone writes a statement in favor of Jason, then they can follow him right out the door. With everything that I've described here in front of you today, all I ask is that there be an investigation into these matters and also for my wrongful termination claim against Jim Polaric for retaliation of the whistleblower that I submitted to the HR director. I have also filed a claim with the EEOC on that matter. I wholeheartedly believe that if you truly want to find out the truth in all these matters, then I strongly urge you to consider not allowing Jim Biggs or any of his known associates on any of these investigative panels. In closing, I would like to quote the principal author of the Declaration of Independence and the third President of the United States of America, Thomas Jefferson. When the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. Thank you. God bless America.
Thank you, sir.
Jason, thank you. Harold, this is, yeah.
Yeah, my thought was just because potentially if any or some of the allegations are true, it could be criminal. I would suggest that first of all, thank you for bringing that to the council's attention. It's important.
Yes, sir.
But in terms of statements made by the council at this stage, I'd suggest that be cautious. I'd be cautious about making any public statements until everyone's had a chance to investigate this. These are pretty serious allegations, and so for that reason, I would encourage everyone to be cautious about any public statements regarding this until we've had time to digest it and consider some of the allegations.
That's all I asked for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, can I ask, have you turned this, I mean, who have you given?
HR.
HR has this?
All of it. All the information. Amongst others too, but they're afraid of getting fired. So it's not just me.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is kind of out of our purview, you know? I mean, appreciate you bringing this in front of us.
Comment on an active case if he filed with the EEOC, it's just me, but.
And that's why I say, I think the council, not through any disrespect to you, but should be very cautious and not make any statements regarding this at this point in time. I just think it's legally.
So I understand that.
With all due respect, I totally understand where you're coming from. I don't expect anything. I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Yeah, I understand that, but I understand that too, Harold. I mean, but it's been stated to us. I don't know where it's at now. I mean.
Oh, I'm not saying that your questions, Mr. President, as phrased are.
Because these are serious allegations.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm just saying be cautious about, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you turn this, I would, these are serious. I mean, using taxpayer time, equipment, material, dollars, I would assume it is against the law. So, you know, with that said, I mean, again, maybe this is something, I don't know, you might want to turn over to the prosecutor just to take a look at. These are serious allegations, so.
Yes. Okay, I'm just looking for a little bit of guidance, because when I go to HR, and, I mean, I don't want to get her in trouble either, but her hands are tied as well, because the commissioners are her boss as well.
From a legal perspective, I think Jeremy's absolutely correct. If you're looking for guidance, I mean, certainly contact an attorney. That's not always easy because a lot of attorneys charge hourly. I get that. But in terms of next steps, I think talking to the prosecutor may be the next best step, and let them investigate it, let the professionals do their investigation and find out, get to the bottom of it.
Tell him the county prosecutor.
Can I have his name?
Yeah.
The prosecutor?
County prosecutor.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate
Have a good night.
You do as well, sir.
All right. So, Harold, you said it was a quiet night. So. All right, is there any other matter to properly come before the council?
Does the health department
So,
wanna?
Health department out there, what?
Health?
Did you guys want to comment on the,
We're just here if you had any questions and needed information about what we sent you or however you want to proceed. If you want us to come before you next month with a form, it's whatever you guys.
are you talking about the legislation that I had on there? Yeah.
That's what a question.
Yeah, and I apologize. Yeah, I put it on, I mean, maybe come back and I'm sorry. I thank you guys for staying this whole meeting. Thank you. But maybe, and Dave and Harold, if you guys could, research it a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then, unless there's something you guys want to add real fast to us.
You want to tell about the rig? And Friday? It's coming out Friday.
It is, we're going out tomorrow to the homeless outreach services with Living Hope Church on Calumet. So last Friday of every month, we'll alternate between there and the library to provide services to our homeless population. But I did want to touch back on, you had a question about if the funding, you guys had to come up with that match, and yes, you would. And that would be coming from the monies that you give every year.
You give what?
There we go, every year.
So that match, and then we can go into it in detail, and I'll talk with you on Thursday about it, and the auditor, I'll give you specific numbers. So every year, you do contribute a little over $1 million to the health department, and so it's the same. It would go down if you look at year 2. That number is considerably less in 2025. So we can go through some of those numbers when we present to you next month when we come back.
And this is in regard to SB4, correct?
Correct.
And the commissioners have to opt in order for this to occur?
Correct, by September 1st.
Okay.
And we have asked to get on the commissioner's agenda as well. I know that they have been pretty busy too. So hopefully we can get on their agenda to present, hopefully soon. And then we're presenting to our board June 6th.
So this is something you guys support?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, yeah. Is there a reason why we wouldn't, that you do know?
I would have to leave that up to the commissioners if they choose to opt out as to why they feel we shouldn't opt out. For us, we feel as though this is finally the chance to provide the citizens of Porter County with healthy initiatives that will make a huge impact. We've been on a shoestring budget, as you guys know, for many years, and so this is finally the chance we've all been hoping for years, is to provide these services that we're going to be able to do. And we'll be building task force groups and focus groups of the community, so we get full community input on what we should be offering the community.
On the 60-40 split for the SB4, on the 60% in that particular category that they were all there, that they showed on the video that I saw the other day. You don't have to hit every one of those, but those are the areas by which the money should be spent 60% upon. Is that correct?
Correct. So the funding that they are providing to us, at least 60% of the dollars has to go to those core services specifically. The other 40 can go to more of the regulatory, and I'm not in their minds, but I would assume it's because a lot of our regulatory, we have the capability to have permit fees. Some of that can be funded, self-funded through us, so that is why the 60% needs to go to those core services that are highlighted.
Thank you.
Are you going to, so you'll have a presentation next month with all this?
Yeah, if that's if the best way you guys think to go about it.
Yes, please, because then Harold's going to look at the law a little bit, and you're going to help gather some information, so I think we'll have
I will do that before the next meeting.
a full.
How much of this, do you think there's any way to partner with schools with mental health?
So we've been talking a
Because
lot.
I was looking at this, and to be quite honest with you, it seems like the legislators kind of missed the mark a little bit with, I'm looking at smoking cessation, and I'm not saying this is bad by no means, but, I mean, a lot, I see we're duplicating a lot of this in the schools. and
Sure.
so
So thanks, Councilman Stone, for bringing this up. Actually, this is really important. In the state legislature, they did increase mental health funding. Maybe you had seen that. That will go mostly toward crisis management and the 988 crisis hotline. So some of that will come to Porter County in terms of, I understand, a crisis mobile unit and some things like that, that will be at another agency. Mental health as far as public health goes, is also extremely important, and there's a lot of work to be done. Our angle is more from a prevention and education standpoint, and providing those spaces where people can make good decisions about healthy living and good interactions with others that promote mental health. So there are a number of places within our core services, that was the 60% that Councilman Vasquez was mentioning, that where mental health can play a role. So there's a section on maternal and child health, there's a section on injury prevention, there, of course, is a section on substance abuse and tobacco abuse, or tobacco dependence, which is much higher rate in patients or people with mental health diagnoses. So there are really quite a few areas within those core services where we can be, I think, making a big impact as far as mental health goes in Porter County also.
I just wanted to, on my soapbox here for a second, we use Crown Services in Porter Stark at our school to do evaluations for students who are having problems, and right now, if the needs exceed it, they won't do any more for us. So it kind of bothers me that, we're going to spend all this money on health, and like I said, I understand that, but when the schools can't, they don't have the professionals to evaluate the students that are in crisis, that to me is a big problem. So I was kind of hoping if there's any way we could partner, maybe help, or maybe you guys be able to evaluate schools to kind of, because Doolin, we've been lucky, we have a referendum, thank God for the public, and we can afford to do some things. Other schools, maybe not so lucky. So that's where I was kind of hoping we could.
Yeah, absolutely.
We did opt in, so I'm not saying.
Youth
where
and
they are or not,
schools
but that's just my
are
question.
actually a big portion of our core services. So we've been thinking about a lot of different options in terms of even the health department hiring a social worker and things like that, where we could go to the schools and help out the schools along those lines with mental health issues.
Because we can't get evaluations, understand that, and people can't get into the doctors to get evaluated, so therefore they have a kid that's struggling or possibly worse, and.
Right, for both health
No
and
treatment,
mental
so.
health. It's a big problem, and Porter County actually is in better shape than a lot of counties in Indiana.
Right.
So, right, it's a big problem everywhere in Indiana, and we are aware of that, and that is one of those things that we are hoping to kind of incorporate and will fall under our core services also. Thank you for the question. It's really exciting.
They say 25% of 18 to 25-year-olds are suffering from depression. We just had somebody in the county, 21, I believe, killed himself not too long ago, 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago, so. That's that.
Well, it's.
I just hope we spend it on where it needs to be spent, and, I mean, no, smoking cessation, I look at it this way, if you want to smoke, smoke, there's nothing I can do about it. I mean, you can educate people all you want, if you're going to smoke, you're going to smoke. So, mental health, a little different story. If you can't get the help, then you're in a bind, so.
Are you guys talking about the centralization of the healthcare or the health board? Is that what you guys are talking about, the centralization of the board? Or you were talking about?
I'm not sure what you mean by centralization. We have had increased funding appropriated from the state to offer to all the counties. So.
My question is Senate Bill 4, which is about centralizing all of the health departments to Indianapolis, so pretty much.
No, there is no central, we are a home rule state, and in our county, we make our decisions about how we spend our public health dollars. They are giving us guidelines that are well within standard public health practices for our money to be spent.
That is what I mentioned earlier in the 60/40, that each little category that they had, they didn't have to pick one and give, 20% of the 60% of that, they have that area to pick from.
I just don't feel it's a smart idea to opt into something like that, only because, Indianapolis is 3 hours from us. Their needs are not the same as our health.
Well, that's, we get to determine our needs, that's why I will be very
So I look forward to
hard-pressed
the
on working with
presentation
them and
next- yeah.
doing something with them,
Yeah,
trust me.
Next
So,
month.
yes.
So we really look
Thank
forward
you.
to it, yeah.
Thank you. Awesome.
So is there?
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Hey. Andy, we're off and running. There we go. Hopefully it was all right.
No blood, so it's okay.
What'd you say?
All right.
I offered to share with who was up here.
Like that.
I have a question for you.